up, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Unofficial PlayStation Plus podcast, your monthly slice for all things PlayStation Plus. News, reviews, reactions, opinions, we got them all some point at the month. Sometimes it's not even the same month. I'm your host for the show, Vincent Kenny, and joining me on this episode is our very special guest, Mr. John Rivera, to talk all things about PlayStation Plus for the month of January 2021, 22, damn it. But before we get to all
It's a
that,
new year.
I'm surprised I haven't done that more. I think I did it once. But before we get to all that, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I was not to spoil news segments for tomorrow, but I was watching the X Play G4 thing earlier today to watch Yacht Club Games announce their new game. It looks pretty cool. It's like a Link's Awakening Bloodborne game where you're a mouse doing like Castlevania stuff, but in like a Link's Awakening style.
Yeah, I saw some of the clips of that. I wasn't like, was it multiple games or was it just stuff they were showing off?
They had a section where they were announcing more about like Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon and Shovel Knight Dig, and then and that's just like either DLC. Shovel Knight Dig isn't out yet, so that was just more information about that. And then after that, they announced an actually new game because those were announced earlier. So the new game is Mina the Harrower, Hollower.
Gotcha.
But it's a mouse that can dig, and she has like a bunch of items that are a lot of Castlevania looking stuff. But it's also like top down, and it's designed to look like a Game Boy Color game, so it's got like
Ooh.
Link's Awakening vibes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm really into it. I never beat the first Shovel Knight, but I might try to do that.
Well, yeah,
I just like the 8-bit art style.
that's one of those games where like I've never played it and they've given me every excuse because there's like treasure trove and there's each of the
Yep.
console exclusive like different versions or the other stuff, and I really want to get to that game. It's just like I know that sounds weird because it's good. I'm just like, I can wait, I can wait, and it's been like, God, what is it? It didn't come out 2013.
It came out in 2013, and then they've re-released it on like every platform since then, and they keep adding new stuff to it. So now there's like a Plague Knight story, and then there's a Plague Knight DLC where you can play the Shovel Knight campaign as Plague Knight, and some of the bosses are switched around. And then they released a King Knight, and maybe it's Card Knight. They released two more Spectre Knight. Two of the bosses you could play as, and they're entirely different games.
Oh, wow.
Using similar like assets and stuff, but because Spectre Knight and King Knight have entirely different like movement systems and attack abilities. And then they finished it with adding, because these were all stretch goals. One of the last stretch goal that was gameplay based was, we'll make a Smash Brothers. So it's a very simple thing, but like you can pick one of the bosses or King Knight or Shield Knight, and 4-player Smash in like a small square arena, and just like try to smack each other off a platform. So it's interesting.
No, that's I it's they kind of died off after a while, but like I think Shovel Knight was definitely like the definitive. This is how you do a Kickstarter game because.
Yes. And that's the not to make this its own micro topic, but the other thing is that Mina. One second, I need to remember what the game is called. Mina the Hollower, because she can dig, or she's a mouse, and so one of her abilities is, instead of a regular dash, she digs underground and can dash, and so she's invincible when she's underground. So that's why she's called Mina the Hollower.
Oh, okay.
But they gave her a Kickstarter as well. So they're doing another Kickstarter.
Because I saw that and I was like, okay, but
Yep,
no, I think any team, if they've proved they can do a Kickstarter, it's Yacht Club.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. But as always, as we do at the top of the show, What? But aside from all the fun yacht club stuff, what kind of non-gaming stuff have you been up to lately? Be it books or shows or games? It's whatever. It's the latest thing that's been the center of your world.
Like most people on the internet, I've been paying close attention to Book of Boba Fett and Peacemaker.
Peace Walker.
I
My
every time
favorite
I
Vita
try
game.
to say it, yeah, I say the Metal Gear game. No, Peacemaker. This week was interesting because Book of Boba Fett was actually just an episode of The Mandalorian.
So I've heard.
Um, yeah, no, it literally goes because it's like the Book of Boba Fett, and then it's like episode 4 or 5. I forget which episode they're at. And it's just the Return of the Mandalorian, and then they play like 2 seconds of the Book of Boba Fett theme, and then it goes into the Mandalorian theme, and I'm
Oh
like, all
my
right, let's
god,
go.
that's amazing.
Yeah, because it's like the huh, and then it goes into the oh, and I'm like, nice,
That's
nice.
yeah. I
Um,
I unfortunately like my fiance is not big into Star Wars, so like I'm kind of behind. I think I'm on episode 3 or 5. I gotta say,
mhm.
I know the internet so far has been really harsh on that show, saying like it's definitely slower than I was expected, and
Yeah,
so far I enjoyed Mandalorian more, but like I still kind of enjoy it for what it is. Like I think it's so cool that we're still in an age where we're getting a Boba Fett show. We're getting all these different shows, and like
mhm.
the quality in terms of like the visuals and the set design and all that other stuff, like it's not that much of a step down from the movies.
I think, and I don't think this is a problem because I'm enjoying it, but I think the reason why so many people are like quote unquote slightly disappointed by it is because we've all had this idea of what we want a Boba Fett show to be
Mm-hmm.
from Empire Strikes Back when he first showed up, and what we're getting is modern day post original trilogy Boba Fett, and what a lot of people were hoping we'd get is just here's Boba Fett hunting a bounty hunter and looking really cool in his armor, and this show is trying to be like here's why Boba Fett is cool outside of that armor that you bought as a toy when you were like 13 years old.
Exactly.
So I think it's doing a good job. It's just it was a very slow burn, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It gave me Samurai Jack feels.
Oh, that is a good recommendation. Moving on from that I'm very jealous
Mhm.
for is Peacemaker, because what is it? I think yeah, they're same with Boba Fett. So they're on episode 5, and every time I see people posting of this show, uh, I just get super jealous. And the problem is I haven't even seen the Suicide Squad. So
Mhm.
so like as an outsider, I really like. Can you hop into the show, or like do you need to watch the movie first?
Um, I guess the weird part is you can kind of just hop into the show, but the only reason why I wouldn't recommend it is because from like the get go, part of the point of the show is Peacemaker is trying to turn a new leaf,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the events like you don't have to watch anything but like the Peacemaker scenes, but like seeing how Peacemaker is in the Suicide Squad like informs how
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
the how he is at the beginning of Peacemaker.
Yeah, because that's always the biggest struggle. Is again kind of even going back to Boba Fett. I'm been introducing my fiance to so many like different shows, different other stuff. That's actually what we've been
Hmm.
watching lately. Is like I just got her into The Office because she had never seen it before.
Hmm.
But it's so hard like to go like, oh, like hey, oh, can we watch Peacemaker? It's like, okay, cool. Well, we gotta watch the Suicide Squad, and then probably like the one before it, and like then it starts going like 3, 4 movies.
Okay, that's the different thing. You don't have to watch the previous Suicide Squad to enjoy James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
It like they take place in the same continuity. Honestly, if she really likes Harley Quinn,
Yeah.
I'd recommend watching the Birds of Prey Harley
Yes.
Quinn movie because this Harley Quinn like continues more off of that than from the original Suicide Squad.
See, and I also have not
Um,
watched that too. So this is
yeah,
where it
yeah,
starts like mounting, where it's like, oh, I want to watch
yeah,
Peacemaker. Now we gotta watch this and this and this and.
yeah, exactly. Uh, it's and Book of Boba Fett is like that because from the moment it was announced, I was like, okay, so this is Mandalorian season 3. It's just about Boba Fett,
Exactly.
and it's kind of turning out that way, especially with this new episode where it's just it. Like I thought it was going to be like half the episode is Mandalorian, then he meets up with Boba Fett, and then they're going to do stuff together. But no, the entire episode is Mandalorian stuff, and then at the very end, Fennec Shang shows up, and she's like, "Hey, you want to hang out?" And he's like, "Yeah, I could use some money." And then that's the episode, and then it goes tune in next week, basically. So,
Well, yeah,
um,
that's the worst part. Is like, not having seen Suicide Squad. There's certain things where like what was it? Because what is it? I got her started on. I did her in a weird order because I did her the MCU stuff. So I think I did like Loki,
mhm.
then WandaVision, then Hawkeye, and like we're just doing Winter Soldier. But like I feel like there's certain things like what is it? Like I feel like you could watch most of the Marvel shows and like kind of have a rough idea who everyone is. With Star Wars,
Yeah.
with especially with like Boba Fett, it's like, all right, cool. He was in this other show, and this show is about this, and like, okay, this show is
Mhm.
after the movies, and it's like, all right, so this happened. So I feel like I'm right.
Well,
Yeah,
a
go.
problem I've seen people have is sort of like when I went into the theater to see Rogue One. I heard people like talking behind me, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this takes place before the Force Awakens," and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. No, this takes place literally minutes before A New Hope. Like if you were to watch Rogue One and then A New Hope like back to back, that's exactly what happens." And so there's like a lot of situations, or The Mandalorian is also like that, where it takes place after Empire Strikes Back, but like directly in between that and before The Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
in this like sandwich where we don't know much about what happened back then. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to see all the little one-liners that inform you about like where the Empire and the Rebellion are at this point in time.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's like eventually we will get to that, but I guess
Hmm.
the last closing one, before we move on to the game discussion, that's actually semi-relevant, is I actually got her to watch. Also had not seen it either. Was we watched The World Ended with You anime,
Ah, yes.
which was actually I actually really enjoyed it. She had no idea what it was, so it was really cool to be able to go like, hey, you don't have to play like a 20-hour game or like do all this other stuff. It's just like here's 12 episodes, and
Hmm.
so she enjoyed it for what it was. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't hate it. I guess my main issue was just the fact that it's only 12 episodes, so like as someone
Yeah.
who did play the game, it's like, okay, the plot's like moving. It's just like, all right, we got to go here and do this, and
Yeah.
it like cuz I think it was something like,
Yeah.
no, you go.
The within the like halfway through the first episode, we're already like halfway through the first week
Exactly.
in the game, and I was like, this is a bit too fast because I get naturally it's gonna go faster because you don't have to explain game mechanics, but there was like straight up like interactions with the where they in fulfilling the missions they like learn about each other through the interactions with the girls that like thought they were both hitting on the same guy, and it turns out one was just trying to wingman for the other one.
Mm-hmm.
um and there was like a lot of stuff like that where if you weren't part of the game, like the Reaper's game, you didn't get any like build up or character development, and that's like super important to me to
Mm-hmm.
how like the world ends with you's universe works, about how like we're all connected, even if like people can't see us, like we can affect them in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that it turns out that like even if you weren't aware of this series, you can enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I will like that's that's been the interesting thing. It's like because again, like I posted on Twitter a while ago. I'm trying to get her into Kingdom Hearts because it's the 20th anniversary and all this other stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
that's been the
Mm-hmm.
biggest struggle of like, you know, Peacemaker is only like really like one movie and like 4 episodes. That's very manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars is like cool. That's if you want to be conservative, you could say like 3 movies and 2 seasons of a show. That's doable.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Hearts is just this beast of like, I don't even know where to start. Where I was literally like, do I show her like YouTube recaps? Do I like get the
Oh.
books? Do I get the manga? I'm like, I don't know how to go about this. So honestly, The World Ends With You, like
Mm-hmm.
as a show, it's just okay. But I'm kind of like
Mm-hmm.
warming up a bit more to, because this isn't on the news docket, but recently they were talking about how there's gonna be like an It Takes Two show and movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've kind of started to soften up on the whole like, oh, the show being made into, or the game being made into a show, because it is a lot easier to say like, hey, just watch this one season of a show compared to, hey, play this like 200-hour RPG.
Yeah. Um that's I'm feeling weird about because like they haven't mentioned it in a while, but there was I think a confirmation that there is a Kingdom Hearts TV show in the works.
Yeah,
Um
that.
and I'm because it's being ran by Disney Plus and it sounds like it's being worked on specific like at I don't know which one, but one of Disney's animation studios, like their TV areas. I'm worried because like to me what makes Kingdom Hearts so good is just like how crazy it is, how it's this clearly like Disney infused property and yet it's 100% Nomura's mind, and like I feel like if they tried to make it more like approachable for Disney fans that might ruin it. Uh but I do appreciate that like games are like a little too long, and I actually with someone like started from Kingdom Hearts 1 and at their insistence like I was suggesting that we like crop things down or I just like show them some, and no, they were like no, I want like we traded the controller back and forth and whenever like we got to a hard boss I would usually fight them, but they were like no, I want to play everything on these collections, I want to see every cutscene. um and some of those games not only aren't great to play, there's some stuff that is like very much filler. Especially Kingdom Hearts 1 has this level design where it's like go from one end of the level all the way to the other end, see a cutscene, now come all the way back, see a cutscene, now fight a boss. It is like okay, this was a waste of time.
Yeah, we're still. I was hoping to do one a month, but obviously it's
Hmm.
right. Like things have been so busy right now, but yeah. So hopefully
Hmm.
I'll have more
Hmm.
to say about that on the next episode. But until then, we can get into the game discussions for this month. You got
Hmm.
3 games for PlayStation Plus this month. They were the first one was Dirt 5. It was created by Counterplay Games and was released on PlayStation 4 on November 6th, 2020, and later ported to PlayStation 5 on November 12th. For early access, and then on November 19th for the general public. It has a Metacritic score of 79%, although the PS5 version has a rating of 80, and there's no exact sales numbers. So I don't know how big of a racer you are and all that. But like, have you ever played any of the Dirt games in the past?
I have never played the Dirt games, but I have seen people online like really enjoy them. They're sort of like one of the I think Dirt is one of the weird, quote unquote quality double A franchises left in the gaming space that isn't like truly indie, but also is definitely not like a triple A thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've seen people that are like pleasantly into it, but also it was a thing where like everyone was either I don't care about this game or they were like I've already beaten this game
Mm-hmm.
10 times over or like played all the stuff in it. Like people who are interested in Dirt have played Dirt, I feel like at this point.
Well, that's the interesting thing is I was doing research up on this game and I completely forgot there is much like Forza. This is technically like 2 franchises because there's Dirt and then there's oh god basically the more arcadey simi one. Dirt,
Interesting.
if I can find, yeah, it's just Dirt Rally, and that's what I found most interesting was apparently from my brief research, this was actually the team who did Drive Club.
Mm-hmm.
who I didn't even know. I thought they were apparently. I think they became independent after they released Drive Club, and so other stuff. So the thing I find most interesting about this game, and the biggest issue a lot of people had was apparently this, much like Forza, this was the main one, and then you had Dirt Rally, which
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to be the more arcadey, silly one. And then you have the main Dirt to be the more the more simmy one, and then Dirt Rally is the more arcadey one. And then apparently when this one,
Mm-hmm.
it's a weird mix of the two, which I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, like I
That is interesting.
see, I have a love hate with things like I respect uh simulation games far more than I enjoy them because like
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sort of the same way. I've dabbled in them here and there, but I've never been a huge fan at all.
like what is it to totally time date this
Oh.
part. Uh GT
Mm-hmm.
7 tomorrow they're having a state of play. And I know a lot of
Yep.
people are discussing like, oh, if you should watch all this other stuff, and it's one of those things like even myself, because I was like, can I squeeze this in real quick? And I was like, it's just gonna be like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the tire and the performance and all this other stuff, and like,
Yep. Yep.
it,
It's I'm gonna check it out, but probably not so much because I'm interested in the game itself, but for the real reason why these games get made outside of the car fans, which is, oh wow, those are some very realistic cars you made in that graphics engine powered by PS5.
what's actually no,
Um,
it's actually interesting that you bring that up because again, just anecdotally from what I've seen, the interesting thing with GT7 is like it seems like
mhm.
PlayStation is known to have a good photo mode, but the one they were showing off for GT was crazy. So it is interesting how just the way
Mhm.
they were presenting it, it made it look like it was going to be not just about the actual racing, but the whole car collecting and the car appreciation and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the sim racing genre is very fascinating because it's a very lucrative genre. Like these games make, well, the big ones, the Forza and Gran Turismo make a ton of money. Like one of the Gran Turismo is like in like I think the top 20 like best selling games ever made,
Mm-hmm.
like something really high up there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's because there's like cars are a really popular thing in different parts of the world, but then they get so little coverage in video games because they appeal to this weird specific group that is like I really love cars and that's the only video game I play is Gran Turismo or Forza, and then nobody else really cares or will click on the articles or videos for them.
Well, that's the thing
And
I
it's
find interesting is like in many ways, like it parallels sports games, but like
mm-hmm.
I feel like it actually has a kind of a bit more respect because like they're not yearly, but they're pretty much like every other year. You're
Yeah,
getting a new Forza, you're getting a new Dirt, you're getting like a new racing game, but they do
because
have this polish to them.
unlike a sports game where you have to sort of gamify like football and like figure out a way to take a sport about controlling the human body and map it to buttons and analog sticks, it's still a card game.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's ways to integrate like using the stick shift and brakes and stuff, but those are all fancy buttons basically. Um, so I feel like it's a lot easier or a lot not easier but better easier to design a really good car game than like a sport game where sports are complex to do as a human being, but like it's harder to map those to like a control interface.
Mm-hmm.
But because cars are technology, like that makes so much more sense. So you can make a game that feels gamey,
Mm-hmm.
while still capturing the like aesthetics and technology that people want to see, and the car branding,
Mm-hmm.
um, that goes with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things like I don't think I will ever get super hard into it, but like I'm glad for it's there for the people who want it.
hmm So I was looking up the developers of Dirt 5,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Codemasters, and they actually got bought by Electronic Arts last year.
Really, I completely forgot
Yeah,
that.
I remembered hearing something about it on a podcast once, and then I that made me just look them up while we were talking, and I'm figuring that that's probably an influential on why the last game is getting a PS Plus version to like get people more familiar with the brand,
Mm-hmm.
and start pushing it more.
Yeah. So any last minute thoughts before we move on to the next game?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Happy for the people that like Dirt.
Yeah, a solid sewing, especially compared to stuff like, what was it? Oh God, I'm trying to think. The car one from PS5 at launch.
No, not Drive Club.
Or sorry, not Drive Club. What is it? Destruction All Stars. There you go.
Destruction. Oh, PS5. I was thinking PS4. Yeah, no. And that wasn't even at launch. That was like way later.
Okay.
Yeah, no. That was disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. This one just seems to be like the biggest complaint I heard is like, oh, it's a bit. It's like this weird middle where it's not quite super simmy, but like it's
Mm-hmm.
not super arcadey. It's a weird middle where it doesn't really commit to either.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, the racing's good, the graphics good. Like it's a great game for people to check out.
Yeah.
But moving on from that one, we're going to go over to Deep Rock Galactic. It was created by Goat Ship Games and released on May 31st, 2020. And it was released
Mm-hmm.
for PS4 and PS5 on January 2021. It has a Metacritic user score of 7.4. I couldn't find one for the PS4 version. And it has sold over 3 million copies as of November 2021. So, I'll be honest, this was one of those ones where when this month got announced, I'm like, cool, Persona, I've heard of that. Dirt, I've heard of that. And it was just like, Deep Rock Galactic. Okay, that's the weird indie. You need one to pad out the month. People love this game apparently, and I've never heard of it before then. So, had you heard about this game before the Plus reveal?
Yeah, I've also never heard of this game. And I saw like because I follow a bunch of like kind of funny and like other games media people, and a handful of them were like really really excited and like getting
Exactly.
their like friends to like play with them, and I was like interesting. And then I saw some gameplay. I didn't end up playing it.
Yeah.
Because I've mostly been going through my backlog.
Yeah. Well,
So at the beginning of this year.
I think everyone's prepping for February. Like everyone's like, all right, I got to get to gaming in now because from like February to March, nothing
yeah.
new's coming.
Yeah.
But no, with Deep Rock, it's basically this weird combination of it's like Minecraft crossed with Left 4 Dead. So basically, you select these classes, and you can customize your little dwarf dude and like get different beards, different hair, different clothes, and whatever. And basically, you go down into to these caves or these mines. And there's various different missions like, kill 100 enemies, get this specific material, mine just a certain amount of materials, and you and your 4-player squad just go in, and then that's it, just like mine and kill enemies, that's it. And the whole appeal is just the loop of like unlocking new abilities, unlocking new costume parts, new weapons, all this other stuff.
Interesting.
It's one of those things where like it's very simplistic, and I think the pro and the con for me is like this seems like a perfect Discord game where like you're just you're just, hey, I'm hopping on, guys, I'm gonna play 5 minutes, I'll help you with this mission, I'll help you get this resource, and you kind of just shoot the you're just like talking for your friends and catching up with your day while you're kind of mindlessly playing together.
Yeah, a like Borderlands Minecraft
Exactly.
sort of combination thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds cool. The thing for me is like I don't know personally how long I would stick with that. I feel like PlayStation Plus
Yeah.
was the perfect place for this because it's like, oh cool, this is the month's game. Let's play this. Let's do a mission or two, and then hop out. Yeah, because I know they've added like a whole bunch of stuff since it's gone on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And like it does look. I'm trying to see. So yes, because I'm looking at an article over from pushsquare.com written by Liam Croft, and he's talking about how
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation Plus added 6 million people to Deep Rock Galactic's player count. Deep
Wow.
Rock Galactic was already popular before it came to PlayStation 5 and PS4, and in turn PlayStation Plus at the start of this month. But the game's inclusion in Sony's subscription service has added many new miners that it rates a new milestone. More than 10 million players have now gotten to work with a pickaxe since the title's initial release in 2018, and a whopping 6 million of them are on PS5 and PS4. Developer Ghost Ship Games shared the news in a press release, which also noted the inclusion of a free battle pass for players to work through and recognition of the game it has received through 2021. The way Deep Rock Galactic has been developed is directly with the community, says Ghost Ship Game CEO Soren Lundgaard. We are a small team undertaking a huge console launch, so it's amazing to have this community working with us every step of the way, and we can't wait to show what we're gonna give back to them in season 2 coming this spring. So yeah, that's a thing I find really cute. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I often go back and forth, especially with like some in the community about, you know, what is the purpose of PlayStation Plus, if it should be this like rival to Game Pass. And like I think the thing that I personally love is, like I said before, there's usually 2 big games and then the one indie. And the one thing I've always appreciated is the fact that PlayStation Plus gives games like this a platform, because like we both said, we had never heard of this. I probably would have never played this. And just going through research, it's just like, okay, cool. Like, I kind of want to go back. I kind of want to see if I can get a
Mm-hmm.
team and players together, just even if it's only for like a weekend or two, just to kind of see what the game's about. And I do think it's really cool that it gave this game a new platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I another game that was like that was a little game by the name of Fall Guys,
Mm-hmm.
where it was announced like a year before it came to or announced, not before it came out. And I remember seeing the announcement for it and being like, this just looks like Gang Beasts, but Battle Royale Gang Beasts. That's kind of weird. That doesn't look super great. And then they were like, oh yeah, and when they announced it was coming out for real, they were like, and it's going to be a PS Plus day one game. And I was like, you know what? I'll check it out. And I ended up playing a lot of it that first month when it came out, and I was really enjoying it. So and I think there are other games that I can't remember. Rocket League.
Yeah,
That was
Rocket League.
also a game that, because it could just, PS Plus players could just pick it up free and get really into it. It led to positive word of mouth, and then that, ironically, despite the way PlayStation Plus is about, or PlayStation is about crossplay, ended up being like one of the leading games for crossplay, because it was so popular on every platform that they were like, "Yo, we wanna let these people play with each other."
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, I don't have much more to say. Like, it's cute, it's cool. I guess the main
Mm-hmm.
thing for me is
Mm-hmm.
just like, I'm trying to think of. I guess like you're saying, like, I just feel bad for, in a certain sense, because I'm trying to think how to describe it. Maybe this is what the developer wants.
Uh-huh.
I just don't know how much long term. Like, that's my big worry is what is it? I can because I believe Fall Guys had a bit of a that's a big the pro and the con of being on PlayStation Plus is, I believe Fall Guys
Mm-hmm.
had a little bit of a fall off after that initial month, where
Mm-hmm.
once it was the new hotness, it was like, oh my god, like it was great, amazing, but like, yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks on from the games being released, like you said, every other day I was seeing some person on Twitter or a personality, whoever, talking like, oh man, we're doing this mission, and I just feel like people burned out
Mm-hmm.
of this game really fast.
I think it's all right, because I think this is still like a small team. Like, I'm looking at their Wikipedia page; they have 28 employees.
Wow.
Um, so like they don't want the problem that like the Among Us team has, where that's literally a team of single digits
Yeah.
running one of the most popular games in the world at this point. Maybe not at this point, but like when when it got big in like 2020, and even into the middle of 2021, it was still doing really well.
Yeah.
Um, I think with Ghost Ship games, if like this giant high leads to just a very a bigger than they originally had, but still much smaller than this month of dedicated players, that's good enough for them. This seems like a game that they don't want to balloon, that they just kind of want to work at their own pace.
They,
I think Fall Guys has a bigger issue where that game was really, really big, and then they got bought by Epic, and now that game is no longer like this huge, massive thing, but they're still owned by Epic, and Epic probably wants to make money out of that thing. You know what I'm saying?
exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, but hey, they did a good game, and I cannot wait to see what they do next. But until then, we're gonna move on to the last game and the big discussion for this part of the podcast, which is gonna be Persona 5 Strikers. It was created by Omega Force and P Studios, and it was released on February 2020. It has a Metacritic score of 83, and I couldn't find exact sales number, but as of June 2021, it sold 1.3 million copies. So yes, like we were saying before, I unfortunately have never played Persona. So before we get to Strikers, have you played the main one or even Royal, I believe?
I started my Persona journey. Well, my first introduction with Persona is talking to a friend in high school about video games, and then he's like, "Yeah, I've just been playing a lot of this game called Persona 3." And I was like, "Oh wow, how much have you played?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm about to hit 100 hours." And at the time, I thought this was because this is one of my hardcore gamer friends that will like replay games. I thought he's like, "Oh, he's just like doing like all of the side content, like going into like extra bosses, like the equivalent of like fighting the ruby weapons in like Final Fantasy VII." And then 5 years later, Persona 4 comes out, and I eventually managed to start playing it. And then I hit 80 hours, and I'm nowhere near, or I hit 60 hours, and there's no signs of like a build up to a final boss. And I'm like, oh, okay, these games are just long. And then I beat Persona 4, and then in 2014, Atlas releases a trailer that shows a chair with a ball and chain attached to it that says, "You are a slave. Will you emancipate?" And then they release the equivalent of the Cyberpunk yellow page that's just this red screen that says Persona 5, Winter 2014. And then it didn't come out for 4 more years because that trailer was 2013, and then it came out in 2017 here. But I played through all of the original Persona 5, loved it, thought it was amazing, and then they announced Persona 5 Royal around the time when I beat it, but it was specifically for the Japanese release date.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to pick up this game. I feel like I've Persona 5'd out. But then between the delays due to the translation and recording the dub, partially due to COVID-19, by the time it ended up coming out, like halfway through the pandemic, I was like, you know what? I want to hang out with friends again. I'll play a fancy version of Persona 5, and I ended up platinuming it. My one and only platinum is Persona 5 Royal. The first platinum I've ever gotten because
That's a good
Persona.
first one.
Yeah, they added a new semester section because in the original game, the game ends in December, and since the Japanese school year doesn't end until March, the game just kind of skips a couple weeks and is like, okay, here's Christmas Day, okay, here's Valentine's Day, so you can do a thing with whoever your girlfriend or multiple are, and then all right, now we're at the final day, and so in this game they add an extra dungeon, so you play through all of that stuff, but it's still, the smart thing they did is it's still balanced, assuming you're not gonna get to that ending. So all the original characters, I had all of their like they have a set of NPCs called confidants where you talk to them, you have conversations, and you get to see like a storyline of something they're dealing with. And as you level up your friendship with them, it powers up the personas you can fuse to do the battle dungeon stuff.
Okay.
And when you do this with the characters that aren't your RPG battle party members, they will give you different abilities. Like you can talk to the politician, and he'll give you stuff that helps you with negotiating to get personas. Or like there's a girl who plays, I think it's shogi, which is sort of like Japanese version of chess,
Yeah, more or less.
and her strategies will allow you to like switch party members mid fight or increase the like give certain party members a ability to like have a second turn or something. And I got all of those by the time the last semester started, and then I was like, you know what do I need to get to the platinum? And it was basically like go to the maid cafe, go play some
As you
baseball,
do.
go do these three simple things that are just completely optional, but like you just have to do them like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, okay, I have like 5 weeks, and I'm basically about to fight the final boss, so I might as well do this. So, I am very familiar with Persona to answer
Yes.
your original question.
Well, no, that's what I'm gonna say. Because kind of to follow up from that, before we even get into strikers, I tried to explain to my fiance the whole issue with when we just got the. Well, it wasn't even like the logos. I think it was just like the copyright for like Persona R and then Persona S.
Yes.
And I remember how much people were upset because they're like, okay, Persona R is Persona Royal. We're like, all right, cool. Persona 5S, it has to be Switch, it has to be Switch, it has to be Switch.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
cut over to this, and it's like, oh, it's a Dynasty Warrior game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but like, was your first initial reaction were you upset that it wasn't the Switch, or like what were your first thoughts?
So I'm a weirdo. I was disappointed that Persona 5 Royal wasn't Persona 5 Rumble and it wasn't a Persona fighting game because I like in other like penultimate conquest stuff that I've been in, I talk about fighting games here and there, and one of the ways I got into fighting games was the Persona 4 fighting game, which is a crossover with the Persona 3 cast duking it out. So I was really hoping that Persona 5R meant a fighting game. And then I was hoping Persona 5S might have been the fighting game. But instead it's Strikers. And I was a little bit disappointed, not so much that it wasn't the Switch game, but because I don't like Muso games.
Yep.
Because I really like action games and Muso games. Which I've since tried some out and I learned what the actual appeal is. But at the time, I was like, oh, you just hit square over and over and over, and everything dies, and you don't have to try or dodge or anything. And then I tried out Hyrule Warriors at one point, and then I learned that Muso games are really RTS games where you control one character, and you have to figure out where you can send your party members to clear troops out, and where you have to go do it yourself because like the computer controlled characters aren't as good as you are. But lucky for me, Persona 5 Strikers is neither of those. It is actually a action RPG that uses Muso combos, and it's actually really cool.
Yeah, because that's the interesting thing for me is I like you said, the reason I loved sorry, excuse me, the reason I didn't touch the original Persona was the same reason that I'm like I really want to, is because it's like, man, I would love to get into an 80, 90, 100 hour RPG. I don't have the time for that. So like,
Yep.
I went into this game purely blind, so I don't know how well it works in terms of like either a Miso or a Persona game, but like I kind of I actually was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed it. Because because like you said, this, I think I've played, I was looking around, I couldn't find it. I remember back in the day playing this like medieval Miso, where it's basically with just King Arthur and other stuff. So like I
Interesting.
I've dabbled in miso games, but like I never really found anything to love. So when I went
Mm-hmm.
into this, I was like, okay, it's just gonna be a button mash and just spam like I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan, and the one thing like
Yeah.
we always get crap for is like, oh, you just press X and spam bam bam bam, and it's like, no, there actually is more strategy. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm gonna go into this, and this is what's gonna be the button mashy, and I actually got like, I died like a bunch of times because
Yep.
just going in and blindly, attacking and like just kind of trying to brute force everything isn't actually gonna work because the game actually like uses specific enemy weaknesses and different powers and like different,
Mm-hmm.
so like you actually do have to not only switch up your tactic about how you fight any given moment, but like each character has their own buffs and benefits and all this other stuff. So like it's all about not only just playing as like this lone warrior, but playing as a part of a team and swapping off and like making sure you
Mm-hmm.
set up those combos.
Yeah, that so you know how like in Kingdom Hearts games all of the magic spells are just straight up like Final Fantasy spells like Fira, Firaga,
Hmm.
Blizzaga, Stopka,
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's the exact same thing here in Persona. Like every character's persona has straight up the same move set from the actual turn-based game. Just here everyone's doing action combos and stuff, and all of the combos and attacks are also reminiscent. And this is something that I really liked as a Persona 5 fan. Is that everyone's moveset and fight style is based off of their melee weapon and gun from their
Hmm.
from how they work in the game. So like the main character Joker, he fights with a knife. So his standard attacks are a lot more close range than someone like Yusuke, who fights with a legitimate katana that can do more faster, wider range strikes. And then you have Makoto, who is a she fights with just her fists. So she, when you level up, like get new weapons, they're all just like gauntlets or brass knuckles, and so her fight style is about buffing herself up so that she can't be staggered, and then dealing out uh, close range punches and stuff.
Hmm.
And so it's that the feeling of like what some people got from the anime, where you're seeing these characters that you normally go to a menu, select this attack on this enemy, and then you watch an animation, and now you get to see how they would move in real time and how they run or dodge
Yeah.
or summon the personas like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, like I actually really felt like, because initially, so going into this, I went back and forth where part of me was like, it would be really funny to go into this blind and have no idea what's happening.
Hmm.
And like I was going back and forth, and I was like, no, I finally gave in. Um, and I watched a bit of the anime, and we were kind of discussing it off air, and like I was saying like, hey, I'm almost close, and you were like, oh, well, just so you know, the last two episodes are like an hour long.
Yeah, because I remember my friend, she never got into the game. She just watched the anime, and she was like, "Yeah, it was really weird. I thought they were gonna fight this guy, but like then it just kind of stops." And then I was like, "Oh, that is weird." And then one day I looked it up, and then I found out, oh, the anime like ended at one point, and then like 4 or 5 months later, they released a TV movie that was like the actual ending for the show. And this girl that I was talking to just like didn't bother to check in on the show after it finished because she didn't like look it up or anything. She was just like, okay, it's done.
Hmm.
She just like hit watch next episode on Crunchyroll and stuff.
Yeah, but no, the interesting thing is like I kind of have just a basis. Like I knew the Persona cast before watching the anime, but like I still didn't know the basics. So like I think my starting team was like Joker, Ryuji, and then oh god, what is it? Fox.
Um, um, Yusuke.
Yeah, Yusuke. Yeah, and then like the thing is like they're very similar. Um
Mm-hmm.
Although, like I think Ryusuke is like kind of slower, but he's more strong. And then they introduced the new character of Sophia, and then she actually
Yep.
plays a lot differently to the sword fighting dudes, and then I was like, all right, well, let me switch it up, and then I put like Anne into my
Hmm.
party, and Anne uses her whip, so she's a lot more
Yep.
quick, chip damagey stuff. So like, I didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to play with all the characters. Like, can you? I think you can put Morgana in your party.
Yeah. It's weird because they kind of want you to understand how the game works. So they start off with like the classic trilogy of Joker, Ryuji, and Morgana, who are the first three characters in Persona 5.
Yep.
Then they introduce Sophia because you can have a full party of four. And then you
It
kind
was
of
funny because I was freaking out at my fiance at that because she was like, "Why are you freaking
Mhm.
out?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. I'm used to Kingdom Hearts where like you have two. You don't know how happy this makes me that I can have a full party."
exactly. Yeah, and then part of it is also that for some reason all of the Persona spin-offs are like, you know what we should do? Here's a new robot girl that we just invented just for this game that we're never going to reference ever again. And so for this one it's Sophia. But and then after that dungeon or that section of the dungeon, you talk to your friends, you have like a 10-minute long cutscene because it's Persona.
Yes. See,
And then you jump in.
that's what I was gonna find
Yep.
interesting is, like I said, when we played Kingdom Hearts, we got to about Wonderland or so. So like we played like maybe 2 hours or so. And
Hmm.
this was the first time I had gone back to Kingdom Hearts, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm shocked how fast I am blowing through this opening because I'm like in my head and like other people's perception. I thought Kingdom Hearts is drones on and on and on, and I'm like, oh wow, that
Hmm.
was actually really fast. We were playing Persona, and we were like, is this a game like and like I apparently this is how the dialogue in the main game is also.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing about Persona. Every game's introduction is shorter than the previous game, but Persona 4 or not Persona 3 is actually really short before it lets you get into the Persona stuff, but Persona 4 it's just straight up like I hope you like anime because this is straight up like 5 episodes in a row of exposition. I'm sorry, but just luckily they did have an autoplay mode, but it
Yes.
was just like you're just going to be watching people talk for a couple hours before you even get into a dungeon, and then you get into a dungeon, you do one tutorial fight, and then it's more cutscenes for like another 30-40 minutes.
Yeah,
um
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I did not even beat the first what is it, jail or whatever the dungeons are called. Like because
mhm.
I think I got to the third infiltration, and I'm like, this has to be it. I've taken down all the spotlights. I've taken down the captain of the guard. This has to be it. And then like this was like 11:30 at night. I beat the final boss. And then there was just more talking and more talking and more talking,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
like they leave the dungeon, and I just start screaming, and like my fiance is like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "They left the dungeon and they didn't like deal with Alice or whatever." I'm like, "That means I have to come back here again." So
Yep.
like
Yep.
I to be fair, I did enjoy the. I think having or watched the show was actually probably the better idea because I at least had some connection to these characters. So
Yeah.
it was cool, like saying like, okay, cool. I kind of know enough who Joker and Anne and all the other people are like. I can't. So it
Mhm.
was cool just to, even though like I haven't technically finished Persona 5, it's so interesting of like, oh cool, I get to catch up with these characters again. I get to see like
Yeah.
I can imagine if you were a hardcore Persona characters, just that whole little opening bit where like they kind of reintroduce you to the characters would be a lot more impactful.
Yeah, it definitely was because there's like something like a 6 month, 6 or 9 month gap between the ending of, and that's the other thing. This was made simultaneously with Persona 5 Royal, so what's weird is certain game mechanics from Persona 5 Royal are in Persona 5 Strikers, like the Showtime attacks
Oh, see,
and
I
like some
love
of the
those.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they never acknowledge the new events or the new characters in Persona 5 Royal, which is really funny. But there's some interesting stuff like Makoto, who in the first game is a very like dresses very conservatively, even casually, because she's like the goody two shoes student.
Yeah.
You can see her character development leaking into this game because now she's a college student. She doesn't live with her family anymore. She's going to college. She wears like a leather jacket that's not like overt, but like you can see that like the fact that her persona is a motorcycle leaking in.
Yeah.
And so that is really cool. But they do not make any effort to explain who these characters are. They're like, if you have not played Persona 5, I don't care. This is for the fans and fans only, and I think that's really funny.
No, I definitely appreciate it because, like I said, like the best thing for us was like because it was a follow up. Like I didn't want to weirdly spoil myself, so like. I don't know the guy who runs the restaurant where Joker lives or whatever, but there was that like nagging thing of like in the back of my mind where I'm like, it's been like an hour and a half and we haven't seen that dude. Like, oh no, does something happen? And like I literally screamed when I just saw him. I'm like, oh thank God, all right, he's okay.
Yeah,
nothing happened at the end of Persona. He's still good. Like I guess slight spoilers for Persona. Apparently he knows who they are and whatever because there's a later scene where he's just like, oh whatever, like they're
yeah.
So like it is. I'm not too much affected by that, but I am surprised how much, like you said, there's no previously on, there's no recap. This is this is for all intents and purposes, this is the next chapter of the Persona 5 story.
Yeah, it is fascinating because they do just drop stuff like that. Like there is a point where they are like, man, it sucks that we remember that time when we fought that big plot twist villain from the first game? Man, that was a thing. I'm glad we've grown as people since then. this new made for this game that probably won't ever affect the official Persona series again. Person is sort of like him, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're just gonna drop that right there.
Well, especially the fact that what was it? You know, we joked before, but like, this is the only Persona game on Switch. So if you
this is the only Persona 5 title on Steam.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I played this on PC just because I was like, I'm gonna look at it and I can comment on it since it's like a different thing. But it's like you got Persona 4 Golden. And we've got Persona 5 Strikers, and that's it for Persona games on Steam.
Well, what was it? I believe it's the 25th anniversary this year.
Yeah, because let me see.
Yeah, because while you vamp, that's the thing. I'm very torn because like I love the story they're setting up, and it is that weird thing where personally I'm like, I think I only have maybe 4 episodes left this show, and in the back of my mind I'm just like, cool, just watch the 4 episodes and then go back to Strikers. But in the back of my mind I do have that itch of like, oh, but Royale has like that extra story content and I gotta see how it all connects.
So the thing about Royal is not so much for Persona Strikers, but the new story content is genuinely nice and cool. But the real reason is just every, like, if you notice, Persona 5 Vanilla got a lot of like either 10s or 9s, and everyone that gave that game a 9 for Persona 5 Royal gave it a 10 because like all of the like little things that are like, yeah, this part kind of was annoying, or this part could have been fixed, or this part could have been touched up. Like all those tiny little things are addressed, and most of them are like quality of life things. Like for some reason, Persona 5 Vanilla didn't have an autoplay toggle. You could adjust it in the settings, but let's say you're having it autoplay and something happens and you need to pause. You basically just had to go to the PlayStation menu, and in this game you can push the untoggle button to make it so that it won't play until you press X and then go do your thing and then come back.
It's funny because this Strikers also has that, and it's like, it's one of those things where it seems, I don't know, very boring.
Yeah.
But like I actually use it way more than I thought I would because, like you said, there is so much talking where sometimes you're just like, all right, cool, I just want to take the story in. I just want to actually hear what they're saying. And then there's other times where like you're just like, all right, cool, like all right, I can see where this conversation is going. Like skip, like it is
Yep.
really nice that they gave you the option, and I didn't know it wasn't
There's
in the original.
Yeah, it's weird because it was in Persona 4. Like all versions of Persona 4 had the toggle, and then in Persona 5 they're like, in the main menu you can select autoplay or manual play, but you can't do it mid cutscene. Which is like during the text box sequences, which is really frustrating if you're like, oh, okay, so this is gonna be like a 20-minute long second of text boxes, and because I didn't realize that, I gotta press X every single time. But another thing they did is in the original game, the first like month, the cafe guy is like, I hate your guts, and I'm not letting you out of this restaurant without my sight. And so for like the first month, after every set of cutscenes, you'd get a chance to save, but then Morgana would be like, go the to sleep, go to bed, like go straight to bed. And this time, instead, you can do like a little chore or like study or read a book, and that gets you started on leveling up your social stats, so you can start hanging out with certain people. Because like the doctor, you can't talk to until you've leveled up your like guts courage stat to like do crazy stuff. In Persona 5 Royal, where it can buff this up by playing pool with your friends, and the idea is that like you're building your dexterity by doing cool shots with your pool stick. And that's important because one of the most annoying boss fights in the game is one where like you don't have all the elemental weaknesses, so you got to start using like the status effects like confusion or fire or whatever to like set up a way to do technical hits that way.
Yeah, because that's been the like I don't know how far you got into strikers, but that was the interesting thing, like at least just from what I've seen, because I tried to explain the original, how there's a whole life aspect to the game, where like it's not just about going to the dungeons. Like you also have to go to school, go to work, do all this other stuff. Like you have all the relationships. Like it is that juggling act. And like the striker tries to do it, but it's pretty much just a cutscene. Like I don't really feel like some days feel way longer than others. Like it's just like, all right, cool, go here, beat the boss, go here, beat the boss, all right, the day's done. And then other days it's like, oh cool, you like I remember early on, like 3 hours in initially, they had there's this scene where they're in the clubhouse, they're having this meeting, they go to the metaverse, which I don't know how I missed it like in the anime, but it still cracks me up that it's called the metaverse. Like,
no, I played this game in 2017, so when people started talking about the metaverse like last year, I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is this? Like, I have a very specific idea of the metaverse, and it is personable.
This is the far cooler metaverse.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, so so like, it's just interesting, like where I'm trying to what is it? You have all this other stuff, but like with this game, it doesn't really seem like it have it. Like I don't know if you play deeper into the game and how much freedom they give you.
I actually beat this game last year.
Okay.
When like I bought it and started playing it like the day it came out. So they do introduce it as the bond system, basically. But here's the thing: it doesn't unlock until after you beat the first dungeon.
Okay.
Specifically, when you get to the second dungeon and start the second dungeon is when they introduce this system. And because I don't know how far you got, but the actual premise of the game is that you find out that there's more jails, or more similar events that imply the presence of more jails going on in Japan, and so you decide to go on a road trip to like take down these jails. And so you go to different like iconic like Japanese summer touristy areas. Like one place you go to is famous for its natural parks. So you drive an RV and you're like parked in like a nature preserve area, which is really interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but so they eventually do introduce the equivalent of a daytime, like doing things that aren't just fighting,
Okay.
uh, where you get side quests where you can, like An or Ryuji will like be like, man, I really want to try this type of food, and so you can go to every new town you go to has like local restaurants or like local stores where you can buy ingredients and then cook food for your friends. And the foods give you like they can be used as health consumables. Some of them give buffs and stuff. And in those there will be unvoiced like text boxes where you'll get see personality come through of the characters and stuff.
Hmm.
But then a lot of the side quests are also, you know what? What if we beat up like a bunch of Jack Frost? Wouldn't that be funny? Like, let's just like it defeats the purpose in some of them because it's literally like, oh, go fight this many enemies,
That's what kids
or
want to do on summer vacation is just grind.
it's for a lot of the characters, it's believable because it's Ryuji just being like, I'm a teenager that thinks video games are cool. Let's like beat up a bunch of a bunch of monsters. And that part it kind of defeats the purpose where it's like, okay, so this is just more grinding and less like character development. But there are some aspects that is more like social based. But it's all stuff like buying ingredients or buying stuff from the store and cooking, sort of like Final Fantasy 15.
Because yeah, that would be one of the main ones. I guess like seeing how you've played both is, um, you know, I guess like would you recommend this to a Persona player who maybe hasn't like played checked it out yet, just because of the fact that it is a Misu and they're like, no, I only do RPGs. Like, do you think the
Um,
story and like is enough to bring him there, or like if it's just like no, if you don't care about that gameplay, like it's not the story isn't in depth enough to really be worth checking out.
it's weird because the reason why people love Persona games is because they do really cool themes about like social commentary and challenging the system and like
Hmm.
a lot of they go into a lot of the ways that like the youth are like oppressed by the older generation. And like when I played Persona 5 in 2017, that was very poignant. When I played Persona 5 Royal in 2021 or in 2020, it was way more poignant.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, Persona 5 Strikers is a little more vanilla. It's a little more on the nose. There's a Siri like thing
Yeah.
that is like they kind of do this like, oh, AI technology bad, and it doesn't it feels both like really on the nose but then really like back and forth where it's like, well, Sophie's really cool
Yeah,
and she's the character you should buy plushies for.
I made the joke early on where she joined your team, and I'm just like, all right, well, she's clearly gonna go evil. And then like 2 minutes later, she's like, could I kill all the humans? I'm like, what the hell? Because they
Yeah.
had to explain to her. I'm like, no, no, don't. We're Phantom Thieves. We don't kill people. We take their hearts. We change their minds. We don't murder them, Sophie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, but on the other hand, what this game is really good at, and I feel like the actual point of the Persona 5 spin-offs are in the original like Persona 5 or Persona 4 title, they go through a lot of stuff. They come out stronger for it, but you see them go through like lots of painful situations, and so the fan base is just like, I want to see these kids happy.
Hmm.
And that's why there is a dancing game where you get to see the teenagers just dance together as teenagers. And in this game, it's kind of a victory lap. So like there is an enjoyable point if you want to see what these characters look like actually doing their moves in real time, as opposed to pressing A again, and then watching your character do a cool animation and then go back to standing in a line.
Hmm.
But the actual appeal is going on a summer trip with the Phantom Thieves and seeing like them hang out at like a festival or going to like a theme park or hanging out at the Japanese equivalent of like of Mall of America and like just doing cute teenager things and like joking around and making fun of each other, and also seeing all of the character development from the first game in action. So like Makoto, whenever, because sometimes you'll interact with the villain of the area in real life,
Yeah.
and you will see Makoto is much more aggressive about like interrogating them and pressuring them and showing how she's overcome in the first game where she would always like work so much by the rules and she was like a people pleaser. um and you see Ryuji being less of a hothead, and like there are moments where he'll be about to yell and you'll just see him like breathe in and like say what he was about to say in a calmer voice. And for me, that is the real appeal of this game, is as a Persona 5 fan, is being able to see these characters carry their character development into a new adventure and seeing them all stronger for it.
Yeah, because like I said before, this in a weird roundabout way, this game beginning or like entrance into Persona, it was weird because the entire time in the back of my mind, like you know, I'm a hardcore gamer. I love gaming, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, you know, I have less time, I'm less energy, whatever. And in the back of my mind, I'm just like, okay, as a game, it's okay. I would watch the hell out of this show. Like, I just love seeing these characters bounce off of each other and whatever. Like, because the cast is so huge, it does kind of, you know, it does get a little bit like annoying. We're like, all right, cool. This is what this person thinks. Like, everyone has to go down the roster. But at the end of the day, like, it was cool. This game made me, like, I was already going to finish the show just because of, like, OCD. I want to be able to leave it. But, like, playing this actually made me very more interested because I want to see how these characters get here, how they, like, you know, like, all the different ways people have matured and grown. Because, like you said, like, I'm not even halfway done, and I love these characters. Like, I would love if they did another, what is it, Dancing All Night, or, oh god, the fighter. But, like, it is one of those things, like,
Yeah.
like you said, it's just cool to spend time with these characters and, like, just see them again, and, like, because, like, I can't speak, obviously, to later missions, but, like, the storyline for the first, jail, it's just, like, okay, like, it's very similar to kind of other plots they tackled before. So, like, the storyline itself wasn't, like, the most amazing thing. It's like, oh, cool, she's this, what was it? This pop idol who wants everybody to like her. Like, the actual story wasn't cool, but the thing that kept me going was, like, okay, I like seeing how these characters, like, interact and, like, the way it affects Anne and, like, all the different party members. Like, it is kind of cool. I just enjoyed these characters. I can't wait to see what happens with them next.
It's interesting because I think every time I think this though, something happens, but I'm starting to feel like maybe the Persona 5 train is starting to run its course. But who knows? Because we've had the dancing game a couple of years ago. We got another Persona 5. We've got this battle game. I would love to see the fighting game come back with these characters. But at this point, I don't really know where they can go. I guess there is the crossover dungeon crawler series Persona Q. So it would they were in that. Persona Q2 had the Phantom Thieves in it. Never mind.
Oh yeah, that's right. Jeez, that's
I forgot.
That's a problem. Like, because
that's the reason why Joker is in Smash, because before Smash came out, there was a 3DS game with the Phantom Thieves in it. Yeah. Yeah.
But any last minute thoughts before we move on? Like, my biggest thing is, yeah, this is not a sequel. I think we've probably spoiled it enough, but, like, if you have not played Persona 1, you need to have some understanding. Like, you have to, because, yeah, if I went into this fully blind, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I did, because at least I had that,
it not only for the characters, but also it doesn't do a great job explaining the battle system parts that are, like, borrowed from Persona 5. Like, it's like, here's how this action game works, but it doesn't explain, like, how, like, weaknesses and strength work, or, like, because Persona does a weird thing where your enhanced, like, Persona physical attacks, like your more powerful, like, stabs or, like, strikes, they use your health instead of SP, instead of like your MP equivalent.
Gotcha.
And that's unique to the Shin Megami Tensei games, Persona and SMT. Because like in Final Fantasy or other RPGs, like if you're a big buff dude that has super moves that involve punching the enemy a lot, usually those still use MP, and in this one you use your health. And so the characters that are physical based have higher HPs than the characters that you want to use magic with. And they don't really explain that very well, or like that you should. There are each character has a combo that ends in like either a magic spell or a physical attack spell that normally uses HP. But when you do the combo version, it doesn't use any resources. So the easiest way to deal enemies, and this is something I sort of have a problem with the game, is that whenever I went into a boss fight that I didn't know what their weakness was, and I was like, oh, that weakness, none of my characters have that. Like, I have Joker can shoot fire, everyone else is like lightning, wind, nuclear. I guess I'm gonna have to use Joker to do any fire stuff to this guy. And I always found that, like, what I would want to do is start a boss fight, see what the enemy's strengths and weaknesses were, and then immediately exit, and then change my party around to figure out who has the right strengths and weaknesses and who wouldn't get insta-killed the second this character uses, like, an ice move on because she's weak to ice. And I wish there was a way to, like, figure that out before going in blind. Basically, but for a lot of these reasons, like not only the story but like the mechanics that are shared with proper Persona, you definitely want to have played Persona 5 before jumping in.
But that'll do it for the game discussion. But before we move on to the news part of the show, why don't we take a break and listen to our wonderful sponsors. Hey guys, so one of my goals for 2022 is we're trying to be more professional. We're trying to have a script. We're trying to do things. And part of that is we're going to do legit ads for free. Whatever. Sponsors, companies, still hit me up. pspluspod@gmail.com. I'll pimp your products. I'll do it. But until then, this free, legitimate one is going to HelloFresh. HelloFresh meal kit delivery services are now offered in the US, the UK, and Australia. HelloFresh is such a great idea. If you're anything like me, it reduces the stress and hassle and waste, and you know you're gonna be having a healthy diet. No more takeout, no more late night snack runs. They deliver an insulated box with new recipes each week and the exact quantity of ingredients you need. It's really fresh, it's really nutritious, balanced, delicious, healthy meals that are fun to prepare as they are to taste. HelloFresh.com. That's HelloFresh.com. And now we join our show in our very wonderfully professionally cut transition. Yeah, this is tomorrow. It's the next day.
Yep.
But we've got plenty of crazy busy stuff to cover right now. Instantly time dating this was the fact there was the GT7 state of play. We're not getting into it. I watched it. It's like we were saying in the dirt discussion. It's cool. It's neat. It's not for me.
Yeah. I didn't even bother watching it because I thought it would be just like car stuff, and I'd be like, those are some pretty cars, and that's it.
Yeah, one of the most interesting parts for me was the fact that they were talking about how they created this procedural AI that basically does dynamic cuts based on the music you put into the PlayStation. So like when you do your replays, it'll actually change camera angle and like camera positions based off of the music you have, which is cool. I'm sure
that is pretty cool.
It's just not for me. That doesn't move the needle. That's not like, oh, I have to get it now. It's just like, hey, car guys, I'm glad for you. Not for me. And I got plenty on my plate, as we have a whopping 16 stories to make our way through.
Yep.
The first one of these is actually one from last month that I accidentally forgot to include. But it's PlayStation has acquired its 5th studio of the year for 2021. And this comes to us from IGN.com by
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Lyles. PlayStation studio head Herman Hulse announced today that PlayStation Interactive Entertainment has acquired independent developer Valkyrie Entertainment, marking its 17th studio under the PlayStation Studio umbrella and the 5th acquisition of the gaming giant has made in 2021 alone. Founded in 2002, Valkyrie Entertainment is a Seattle-based game developer best known for co-developing services for several development studios. Their portfolio consists of the development with games such as Halo Infinite, Forza Motorsport 7, God of War 2018, and much more. Throughout the year, PlayStation has made several acquisitions, beginning in June with the acquisition of Returnal developer Housemarque, and in July, the company announced it had also acquired Nix, a Dutch-based studio specializing in ports to PC games. In September, Sony made 2 more acquisitions, the first being Firesprite, a developer known for creating The Playroom and The Persistence, while the second was a long-awaited acquisition of Blue Point Games, best known for remaking Shadow of the Colossus, and more recently, Demon's Souls. But yeah, so kind of layover from last month, but
Mm-hmm.
it'll feed into the discussions later.
Mm-hmm.
The one I was gonna say for you is, and this kind of touches in stuff like I said later, but something I find interesting is when they announced this that Valkyrie Entertainment. I never heard of them. Apparently, they're just a support studio.
Yeah, they have one game that they've made themselves, and that is Guns Up, which
That was
it seems like a oh, you played it? Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I've
okay.
never played it. I've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a top-down Borderlands / turret defense type thing.
Yeah, like.
But
Well, that's the thing I find interesting about this acquisition, especially because this is from December 10th of last year, so this was before all the insanity that what January was. But
yeah.
I find it interesting how, like they said, with a lot of the acquisitions Sony has done lately, it doesn't seem, compared to Microsoft where it's been, hey, we want Call of Duty, we want Rare, we want Banjo. Like, I feel like Microsoft is buying for specific things. Like, we want, Bethesda for Elder Scrolls. And it's interesting how Sony is kind of doing the opposite, where it seems like they're doing a lot more support studios, and like oh, this developer is known for online, and this developer is known for their games of service or things. Like, they're not hiring specific teams for specific talent. It's more so the support and how they could help the PlayStation family as a whole. And I'm kind of curious, which one of the two do you kind of prefer? Sony.
I mean, it's always
yeah, go.
It's always exciting when we get like a big studio where we know what they do and what they get done. I think Sony, I guess, I don't know if we've got like that other article coming down the line, having to do with Bungie, but I think Sony is trying to just flush around a lot of different parts of their business, not just like it seems, especially since this week, Sony is definitely making very specific purchasing decisions, while Microsoft is very much just buying as much stuff as they can to fill up Game Pass. And sort of the end game for Microsoft seems to be xCloud, and to basically make anything that can run a streaming app turn into an Xbox system. While I think Sony, especially with Valkyrie Entertainment, and then later, not to spoil later articles, but like with Bungie, they're trying to. For years we've known Sony as a single player, as the best producer of like giant single player games with really good stories, and I think they want to make a bigger effort to get into multiplayer, especially when we have such powerhouses going on like League of Legends or Fortnite, especially Fortnite or Final Fantasy 14. How it's been having just gradually gaining more and more success over the past year. So I think it's more of a fleshing out their portfolio to make their AAA versions of like multiplayer games where you will buy a PlayStation so you can have some of the best multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is the end game, and I think the infamous Activision Blizzard purchased by Microsoft is kind of lighting a fire in their asses since the Call of Duty games are such big sellers on every system, but especially the PlayStation right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that's the thing I find more interesting is I'm kind of just I guess like following into the next news story. It's just a brief one that's just Sony has 17 game development studios working on first party games. It comes to us from Game Rant by Alex Hopley, excuse me. And they're just talking about how at CES they had this big splash screen for PlayStation VR 2, and they were talking about all the different studios they have. Yeah, and the thing I find crazy is just looking at this list, it is crazy how, there's Ratchet, there's MLB The Show, which will come up later, there's, excuse me, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Last of Us, Uncharted, Horizon, Astrobot, and GT.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting how, I think like many people, they would consider PlayStation a first party thing. And then you look at what the thing is, the future's coming. MLB's going to be all over the place, which we'll get into
Mm-hmm.
later. But they're going to need a lot of support studios for that. Whatever Factions ends up being, that's going to need a lot of online support to help keep that running. Ghost of
Mm-hmm.
Tsushima Legends, that's going to... Like, it's one of those things where I can understand why Sony is going this way about it instead of going on a hiring spree, which from what I've understand, a lot of their like I know Insomniac's been hiring people, and I believe Naughty Dogs has been doing people too. But it is interesting how the way they're going about this is instead of slowly letting their teams build up, and let's say Naughty Dog has an infrastructure in place in like 5 to 10 years. I think the reason they're buying all these support studios is to kind of push that forward. Like, hey, we want Factions now, so hey, you guys are just
Mm-hmm.
gonna be helping Uncharted, or like, it definitely speeds up that process because yes, with the Activision buyout, it definitely does feel like there is this pressure of like, okay, like PlayStation needs to start firing on all cylinders because they don't have the opportunity to misfire. Even compared to the Bungie one, which we keep talking about, this is one of those ones that the initial announcement of hey, Sony bought this random studio, it really doesn't do that much for me. But like we said, it
Mm-hmm.
does make me excited to go. That these people do have that job security, that they have like that the stability, and it also kind of takes the pressure off of Naughty Dog and whatever studio may be considering a multiplayer mode, just
Mm-hmm.
because they do have that, quote unquote support.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if this means we'll see more Ghost of Tsushima Legends type things where we get the game, we think it's just a single player game, and then a couple months later they reveal like a multiplayer element that you can like get into. And then if like what if the sequel to Ratchet and Clank brings back the deadlocked multiplayer mode from that one game that didn't sell well, and they like just but like super flesh it out, or
Though me
something
personally,
else.
the one I like, I think Deadlock would be the easiest, just because it's a simple, one for one. The one I would actually find more interesting is if they could find a way to do All for One 2, or like the sequel to All for One.
Actually, yeah. Speaking of PlayStation Plus, that came out on PlayStation Plus at some point,
Mm.
and I with my two, they were like I think one was like 8 and the other one was like 12 or 13. But my brother and my sister, I was just like trying it out one day, and they were like, they saw like the press start to enter, and they're like, "Is this multiplayer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can try it. I've never. This is just like a 3 thing." And not knowing anything about Ratchet and Clank, I think I was playing the Ratchet and Clank one, But there was eventually like a PlayStation multiple heroes,
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation characters one. But not knowing anything about Ratchet and Clank, they just jumped in as Quark and Doctor Nefarious, and they were just like shooting lasers and having a fun time. So that would also be a good idea to bring back it
Mm-hmm.
and try to get people into invested in a multiplayer PlayStation space.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of PlayStation multiplayer games, our next story comes to us from VideoGameChronicles.com by Andy Robertson, and it's that Sony switches the Twisted Metal reboot developers. Last year, VGC reported that a new car combat installment, which which by release would be the first in over a decade, had started early development over at Liverpool, UK-based Destruction All-Star developer Lucid Games. However, VGC has been told that the project has been stopped at Lucid, and that Sony has moved the series revival to one of its first-party studios in Europe. Sony Interactive Entertainment and Lucid Games did not immediately respond to a request for comment. It's understood that Sony still intends to bring back the Car Combat series in time for a coinciding TV series in 2023, and early work has begun in the unnamed first-party studio. The source did not provide an explanation for the change of developers. However, one person suggested that the poor reception to Lucid's PS5 title Destruction All-Stars would have contributed to the decision. Destruction All-Stars was released last year to high critical reviews. It was originally planned as a full-price PS5 launch game until Sony delayed its release by 3 months and announced that it was going to be free on PlayStation Plus for 2 months before it was being sold at $20. Despite its PS Plus launch, Destruction All-Stars struggled to find an audience, and its developers even added an AI-controlled driver to help players find matches when there weren't enough opponents online. Sony expressed its commitment to the Twisted Metal franchise just last week when it reiterated on stage at CES 2020 that a series is in development, and it was officially announced in May of 2019 that it is being worked on at Sony PlayStation Productions movie and TV studio. So yeah, this one I find very interesting because obviously, it's all behind closed doors, all this other stuff. I feel like, just like, if you had read that sentence to me, like, hey, the guys who did Destruction All-Stars are doing a Twisted Metal game, I'd be like, that sounds great. This sounds like the perfect team. They seem perfect for it, so I'm very interested to see what happened with all that. So I'm kind of curious to hear, what's your thoughts on not only Twisted Metal coming back, but the fact that the Destruction All-Star teams had to be taken off of it?
So, I listen to Kind of Funny Games daily, very religiously. So there is a second half to this story that I'm not sure you're aware of. I'm gonna send it to you in the Facebook chat.
Go for it.
But they've actually announced who's taken over.
Oh.
And that's Fire Sprite.
Oh yeah.
But then in the middle of the article, it also says not only has the reboot switched from Lucid Games to Fire Sprite, both based in Liverpool, UK, but that Matt Southern, the game director of various MotorStorm games at Lucid Games, may have also moved with the project too. Mm-hmm. And I think on Kind of Funny, they were saying that they also heard from other who was the other one? Other Lucid. Is it Lucid game?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
Lucid. Okay. Other Lucid developers were also moved to Fire Sprite, which, so from the sound of it, it's less that, I don't know if it's just a fancy name thing, or they were like, Lucid can't be on the back of the box of the Twisted Metal remake. It makes us look bad. Mm-hmm. Because what I'm thinking is maybe just for whatever reason, Fire Sprite, like the building, the access, the resources Fire Sprite has, just means that is a better situation to be developing out of than wherever Lucid was stationed in.
Yep. Well, kind of going back to what we were saying before, it gets very weird when you have all these different pieces to play with, where, despite all these companies are separate things, but there are the same thing. So, like, they do have that flexibility to kind of move people around with that, and it not necessarily be like the worst thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounds like this is not really a huge. It sounds like it's a glorified name change for some reason because it sounds like most of the people are still from the original project are still involved. It's very weird. I don't know if they just found a different project that they think Lucid Games would be better for, and that the maybe Fire Sprite is between projects, and so maybe they have like extra staff that can be that can just transfer over. But it's interesting.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, aside from that, like going on to Twisted Metal itself, because like you said, we're both active, kind of funny uh, audiences and like listeners. And the one thing I do find interesting with them is they are very much gung ho on like, oh, make it a game as service, make it a game, like something you come back to. And me personally, I don't know if Twisted Metal has enough hook for me personally to like kind of want to do that daily grind. So would like if it was being made into a games as service, is that something that would actually interest you more, or do you want a more kind of bare bone basic multiplayer mode?
Yeah, that's the weird part about Twisted Metal is it almost has too much personality to just be a multiplayer only game.
Mm.
Like my first memory with the game is going to my edgy cousin's house cuz I was like 10, he was like 14.
Yeah.
So he played M-rated games without letting his parents know, games he borrowed from friends and stuff. And so he shows me Twisted Metal, and I'm like, oh yeah, a game about dudes in cars shooting guns attached to their cars. And then I'm looking and first of all, which was weird, is it has like a fighting game roster set up for choosing your character.
Yep.
And then there's a guy named Axel, who is just a buff dude between two giant wheels, and his arms are the axle.
I was gonna say I didn't know that dude, but the second you said like the wheel, I'm like, yeah, no, okay.
Yep. So, it would be tough because like naturally it's hard to make a multiplayer game and ask for $60 for it to the point where with Destruction All Stars, Sony was really trying to do that for make a $70 game out of that, and then like a month before they were like, screw it, it's a PS Plus title. If you have PS Plus, you just get it for free. Um, I think I think the best of both worlds would be to like make it a battle royale because I don't think there is a car like a specifically car combat focused battle royale where it's just like 100 cars with guns and cannons attached to them driving all over. I think you could make a battle pass situation out of that, but I would definitely because the problem I had with the PS3 Twisted Metal remake.
That's what I was just about to say. That's the interesting thing is like because they did this before back on PS3 where it was only multiplayer. Like and they even had this interesting thing where I think like you chose a specific faction and like depending on how well or good you did in multiplayer, that would affect your team's standing and you would get different buffs and all this other stuff. So like that's the thing. Maybe it was just a case of like it was too before its time, like it was too soon because that was what 2013. So
yeah, it was like half and half because like there was like I think in matches there would be like up to 20 cars in the game, but it would be like 8 to 10 players and then the rest were all bots. Because like you said, you chose a faction and then that faction meant that there were so many bots under your team. And then there would be like cuz like there was the Sweet Tooth faction and then another chick faction. And so it was kind of disappointing because instead of choosing an actual character, you basically chose like a cosplayer of one of the actual cool Twisted. Well, I think they're cool. I know some people think they're edgy and not fun.
Well, kind of going into it, like they said, I am very interested to see how the show does it because I do think Twisted Metal is one of those things where like Sweet Tooth is such a like one note character. He is a clown. He's just like a psycho clown, but like that's kind of the charm.
He's just the Joker if he only liked cars.
Also,
Like
ice
if he
cream.
was like,
A lot of ice cream.
yeah, yeah, but because the Joker like does so many like goes in so many different directions, and Sweet Tooth is just I like cars. I drive a freaky ice cream truck, and I shoot. I think he shot a flamethrower out of it sometimes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, the TV show I'm very confused about because I think there's a one right way to do it, and that's basically to make it like a dark comedy, like sort of like a Borderlands like aggressive, violent, comedic, or I think Deadpool is a better example
Mm-hmm.
where it's like really violent and really intense, but it's also really funny. And I don't know if I can see them doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't ever tell whenever Sony knows what their properties are, or if they're like we're trying to make an HBO show like the like Sons of Anarchy, but with Twisted Metal or something.
Yeah,
And
because
I think that would be the wrong way to go with that.
well, what was it? Because this show has been in development for years, but like, because like we said, what was it? Anthony Mackie got cast kind of as the lead. I think they said he's gonna be basically like the entry man, like the everyman that gets
Yeah.
explained. The one I find more interesting, and I don't know if this is still the case, they have Will Arnett as Sweet Tooth. Which
Interesting.
again, this could be like early rumors, and like he might have been recast, but like I don't know. Me personally, I feel like you don't get Will Arnett if you're not gonna make this somewhat a comedy. So
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything more serious.
I'm sure yeah, same. I'm sure he has, but
That will be interesting.
exactly. But you know, it's not till next year, so we'll have to see all the fun news casting that happens until then. I'm amazing at transitions, and that's why we're gonna go to the next news story, which is
Mhm.
actually three kind of mini news stories, and it's just various updates for PlayStation, and I never know what to call it, to be honest. It's always like the PlayStation software or
I was gonna say like PSN firmware
but
mechanics
that's a weird
stuff.
thing. Like, do kids even call it the PSN anymore? Because that feels like such an old person thing to me. I'm like, I remember always telling people like, oh yo, I'm hopping on the PSN, and I feel like if you said that to a kid now, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Well, I let me see what the apps. No, I think they did change the app from PSN app to PS
No, I think it's just
app.
PlayStation. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I still call it the PSN because I differentiate like network functions from like playing Blu-rays or stuff that's just local to my system. But that also might just be a me thing.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so the first quickie one is just that the PS5 is getting a tournament feature this year. And this comes to us from GameSpot.com by Eddie Makua. I'm the worst for last names. The PlayStation 5 is adding a new tournament feature in 2022. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan has confirmed. Speaking at CES 2022, Ryan talked about what's next for the console, and one feature he mentioned was something called tournaments. This year, we're also planning to announce a new tournament feature on PS5, Ryan said. Unfortunately, that was the only line about the new tournament feature. But reading between the lines, it sounds like a new feature is themed around competitive gaming in some form. So yeah, this isn't news per se because Sony talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
And it is basically transitioning right over to our next update. It's that PlayStation lets Discord users link their PlayStation Network accounts. And this one comes to us from The Verge by Michelle Clark. Discord is finally rolling out the ability to connect your PlayStation Network account to the chat app. Following an announcement made last May, Sony said it would bring Discord and its PlayStation's experience closer together on console and mobile. Right now, the integration is pretty limited, both in terms of what it can do and simply what it has access to, but is likely the first step of things to come. So yeah, much like Discord, I think PlayStation is trying to set itself up in this weird thing where they kind of like Game Pass in a more back-ended way. They want people to stay within the PlayStation ecosystem. And when they first talked about the tournament thing,
Mhm.
like it sounded boring, but it's actually very unique. Because I'll see if I can find more information. But basically, they're saying like a lot of games, like let's just use Destruction All Stars for example. If the game doesn't have because some games like Call of Duty and was it Smash Brothers has a really good one. Like some games have built-in tournament features, and a lot of
Mhm.
Evo, a lot of tournament people will just use the in-game ones. But PlayStation was saying that they want to basically add like just a little icon on the menu so that even if the game doesn't include a tournament feature, you can still set up tournaments for things of like that. And that's what I think
Mhm.
really is interesting is that it kind of takes that pressure off the devs where they don't have to spend the time programming or setting it all up. Because again, the Smash one is really in depth and really cool, but like that's something Sakurai was proud of, and like, he specifically put that into the game because he knew how much Smash would be used in tournaments and how annoying it can be from a management thing trying to set up all those different tournaments.
The thing with the Smash thing is though, because of how massive tournaments are, the ability to seed a like 64 person tournament out of one system is just functionally not super great.
No.
So it doesn't actually get used in like professional tournaments because you'll have like thousands of people trying to play.
Oh yeah.
So they'll be like trying to set up as many switches as they can so that they can get all the scrubs out of the way and get down to a nice, neat like top 32. But even then, like you're only trying to stream so many, so it not always works that way. Something interesting about the PlayStation situation is that PS4 already has a tournaments feature.
Does it?
Um, because I play Guilty Gear and Persona, or not Persona, that's not there yet. I know Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often, when I log into PlayStation, I'll see I'll get a notification in the corner being like, "Hey, an official Sony tournament is happening this weekend" or something. Um, I'm assuming that because they didn't it's in the PS4 version. It's actually just an extension of the events feature,
Mm-hmm.
which there was actually ways to like watch their E3 presentations through an automatic link on your PS4 back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think what's interesting about this is that I think they're taking that feature and just focusing it on tournaments since it seems like that's what it was getting used for
Mm-hmm.
more than like in-game features or like once or twice I'd see like the PS Plus Call of Duty you got it has a double XP weekend or something that wasn't competitively focused occasionally, but it was mostly like the fighting games I own being like, hey, online tournament this weekend, do you want to join up?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's recognizing that there's more of a hunger, especially in since we're in the middle of the pandemic and you can't do in-person LAN parties or in-person tournaments anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of streamlining the process of playing online in a competitive in competitive competitions. That way, that was redundant,
No, but
and I think it's smoothing that out.
exactly, because that's what I was gonna say. Because this is way back in the day. Like, what this was PS3. Because this is very nerdy, and I should not admit this. I actually joined a PlayStation All Stars tournament back in the day, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest issue was that it was just done like through email. So there would be like the head organizer, and then every time you would get a new match, you would like get the email of this other person, and you would have to coordinate, go back and forth. Of like, hey, I'm free this day, and like, so like you guys would have a certain amount of days to set up the thing and do that other stuff, and it would be a lot of coordinating on the individual fighter side. And I think I just flunked out because like I just couldn't like it was too much effort trying to work around other people's schedules and like not having the time that I really needed to. And I do think
Yeah,
like
because
no, go
that
ahead.
would have been several years before Discord.
Hmm.
Because I've entered a couple of online Guilty Gear tournaments, and they've all been run through Discord, and so now it's just like a specific channel that's just like, all right, people calling out what the next matches are, and then you'll get a if you're not paying attention to it, you'll get a DM from the organizer being like, "Yo, where you at? We're trying to stream your match, bro."
Yeah.
Um, and in 2012 you didn't have that, so I think like some places like Smash has had a specific forum where they'd handle stuff like that, but that does sound like a really complicated and obnoxious way to handle a tournament.
Yeah, I'm good. And like you were saying, kind of hopping back to Discord. When I first like heard Discord, I was very much a grumpy curmudgeon old man. Like I have Messenger, I have text. Like
Uh huh.
I don't need another Messenger app. And I think the reason I think the Discord definitely takes a lot to get into, but the beauty of Discord and the reason I think why PlayStation partnered with them and why it works so well for what they're trying to do is that you don't have to, because even what was it like the PS4 and I believe the PS5 was kind of set up how Discord is, where instead of having one big group chat where it's like, all right, this is for this friend, this is for this one, like you can kind of just like go, all right, cool, this is just the fighting game lobby, this is just the Call of
Yeah.
Duty lobby, and like you can have a general group chat, and that way it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier to hop in and do other stuff. But then the beauty is that because it's all one system, you can be playing on an Xbox and he can be playing on a PlayStation, whatever, and like you're still all in the same group chat, but you're all doing your own separate things. So by doing it that way, like everything's all connected without forcing everybody to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's funny because there's those memes about like, oh man, I hate playing online on the Switch because I have to like use Discord through my phone.
Hmm.
But the irony is with like I think most games, I just end up doing that anyway because some of my friends just don't have mics that plug into their PS4, and so they'll just like hold their phone up to their shoulder when we're playing online or something like that, and we'll just use Discord anyway for PlayStation games.
Yeah,
I
because
it's the convenience of just being like a universal thing that can be applied because you can use it on your phone or on your PC, and now it's been added to Xbox and PS4. So it's just kind of everywhere at this point, and that's pretty handy.
yeah, I would have to test it because I remember back in the day, I was streaming Dead by Daylight with someone, and the cool thing is that it's crossplay. So um,
Hmm.
I think I was playing on PS4 and they were playing on Switch. So the crossplay itself was easy to set up because it's like cool, we added each other, blah blah blah. But then it was the actual act of recording over Discord was annoying because like literally, like you said, like I had to like basically hold my phone speaker up to my microphone because that was the only way I could like get the audio for both of us to go through.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So I don't know how if how it works right now, but like again, like you said, just the fact that you can have people playing together on different consoles, on different platforms, all this other stuff, and like the walls are definitely being broken down a lot more, which I think is really cool.
Hmm. Yeah. It's we're in a very like weird time for gaming where massive things just happen suddenly every single day. It feels like.
Hmm. And yeah, the last quick one before we move on is I was gonna include it because apparently the PlayStation app letted you update for a little bit that you could finally take photos off your console, just put them onto your phone, and then do with them whatever you want. But apparently that was a glitch or a bug because it's being taken down now. So
That's
uh,
disappointing.
yeah, apparently it was only up for a week or so, and then a lot of people had issues with it. And now they can't access.
Okay.
Yeah, and they can't access it. So it's one of those things of like we don't know if it was a leak or if they just took it down because of issues or like Sony never officially announced it. So
Uh-huh.
it's just one of those things. Maybe in the next few weeks they'll like actually go, all right, cool. Hey, we've worked out the kinks. The one thing I'll throw to you before we move on real quick is, um, how I know that's been a big issue for a lot of people is like the whole getting their stuff off of the thing, and I believe Xbox lets you uh, access your files from the from the Xbox app itself, and Nintendo has this weird thing where you can
You,
access from a phone, but you have to like scan an AR code.
yeah, you have to basically directly connect to the Switch through like a Wi-Fi connection, but not through your router. Like you have to directly connect the Wi-Fi to the Wi-Fi IP address of the Switch itself.
Exactly, like it.
And the way it shares that is through a QR code.
Yeah, like it's not super hard to set up, but it is. It's still annoying because you do need to go into the Switch, go into the phone. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely more than one step. And then PlayStation has been like, no, whatever. You get they what was it? They got rid of the Facebook integration
Yeah,
years.
I think now it's like
It,
it's Twitter for photos and then you can upload the video to either Twitter or YouTube.
yeah, exactly,
And then the Twitter video is like past a certain length, it's like your options are YouTube or nothing.
exactly. But yeah, so we'll see. That's one of those things. Like again, that's a quality of life one. Much like bringing it back to tournaments. I don't know how much day to day I would personally use that. Like I don't really take that much photos, let alone photos I need to get off my PlayStation. But when
Hmm.
it does come, I'm gonna be excited for those who use the feature more.
Yeah, once in a while I get like a really cool screenshot. Usually it's of a joke in Persona 5 and I'll be like, I want to post this somewhere. This is funny out of context.
um, But yeah, moving on from that, let's go to our next news story, which comes to us from Polygon.com. And it's that Dreams it will be used in a feature film for the first time. And this comes to us by Ann Diaz. There's no dearth of creative projects to come from Media Molecules. Dreams, the all-in-one game creation software, has allowed developers to build everything from children puppet shows to shockingly realistic renders of delicious breakfast. However, now even those feats have been one-upped. A forthcoming movie from Sony Pictures Classic called A Winter's Journey will use Dreams to create its world. A Winter's Journey is set in Bavaria, the southern part of now Germany, in 1812. The film will tell the story of a poet who takes a precarious journey across the mountains, ice, and snow. This tundra-ridden world turns out will be built in dreams. According to a release, the film seamlessly blends live action with CG and painted animation. The movie is being created by London-based studio Oifi and Breakthrough Films. It is being directed by Alex Helfich. I apologize, I am awful at this. Who worked as a producer on The White Knight. Hugh Welchman, who directed Loving Vincent, will serve as a producer on A Winter's Journey. So yeah, just a quick one, but I guess the more general one for you is like, did you ever like try Dream, or like was this something that kind of passed you by?
Um no, I did not try Dreams. I don't. Did they ever make it free on PlayStation Plus?
No, not yet. I think they've done like the early access thing where like you got certain content, but like as of right now, I
Okay.
believe
Yeah,
I think it's
I've
like 20.
never. Uh-huh.
No, I was gonna say I think it's 20 or $30, and I think there's some like
Okay.
weird. I think you can get like a producer bundle for a full 60, which gives you different benefits,
Hmm.
but it's mostly just for the creator aspect. Like I don't think they've broken it out yet.
Yeah, I've never gotten really into creator type games. Like I had Coaster Tycoon 3 on the computer back in the day, and I was the only kid in the house that like played the quote unquote story mode where
I
they
gotta earn
provide you
these
with the
hot
part.
dogs.
Yeah, and they're just like, here is a random like quest or like challenge. Try to fulfill this challenge, and it'd be like sell hot dogs or like fix this thing or make this coaster really cool. I know my siblings, like my little brothers, when I first got a PS3, my parents were like, "Listen, I know you're 17, but the rest of the kids are like under 13, so you have to be cool, or you have to get something for them. So I convinced them to get Little Big Planet so that I could play Metal Gear Solid 4. And then my little siblings got super invested into Little Big Planet. One, and they ended up like every time the DLC would come out, they tried to get my parents to buy it for them. And they'd be like, "No, it's not just because it has Pirates of the Caribbean. This adds water, and
It
look at
did.
like
I bought that
yeah,
pack.
yeah, yeah. The speaking of which, Metal Gear Solid 4 pack
Yep, the
added the ability
Paintinator.
to have guns. Yep, paint guns in the game. And so my siblings, who are younger than me, they got super invested and they got Little Big Planet 2, and they actually sometimes would buy DLC, not with my credit card, but under my account because I had more like
Yeah.
access than they did because they
Yeah,
had
the
like a
master.
junior account thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um and so I'm like very aware of like I respect Media Molecule as a developer a lot, and I've seen like through them and the types of levels they'd play for inspiration, like how valuable a this type of game is. I know a lot of people keep asking why Media Molecule keeps making stuff like Dreams that are like make your own game games. I think Sony just keeps funding them because they think that there is a chance that Media Molecule will make the next Minecraft or the next Roblox. Like
Well,
it's hard to say that they're barking up the wrong tree when those are the two of the most popular games out there.
well, that was the kind of biggest issue for me was I loved Little Big Planet, and I was like obsessed with that game because I love being creative and I love like doing all this other stuff. And because it was a 2D platformer, it actually did kind of limit you in a good way where you're like, okay, I can only tell like if I wanted to do a story, if I wanted to do a level or whatever, I had to do it within the limitation of being a 2D platformer. Where like you said, like yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
can buy the water pack and the Paintinator pack and like a bunch of other upgrades, but at the end of the day, it was a 2D platformer. And like I know
Yeah.
people broke the camera, and I remember I don't think in the first one, but in like 2 or 3, there were first person shooters and there was racers, all this other stuff.
Yeah, there were like certain tricks where you could basically like make like a Duke Nukem like by manipulating the background and having like an animated background that's interactive.
Hmm.
And there were a handful of ways to like break the camera through purposeful glitches that Media Molecule avoided patching out because they were like, "This is creative, this is cool, we'll leave this in."
Hmm.
Um, I know everyone was hoping that eventually they'd make Little Big Planet 3D that would let you make like Super Mario 64 type levels.
Hmm.
And I think a big problem with Dreams and why it was harder to catch on is that there's Little Big Planet I think was really boosted by the Sackboy character,
Yes.
and like that's this weird mix of being like an iconic cute cuddly plushie you can buy, but also you can put whatever clothes on it, and then they would sell DLC of like Big Hero 6 or Final Fantasy 7 characters
Yeah.
with them. And then with Dreams it was just kind of so open-ended that it didn't really have an identity other than you can make anything in it.
Yeah, because like you said, they definitely took a lot of the knowledge they learned from Little Big Planet of, oh, people broke the camera, so because like something there obviously was the what is it, the autocomplete levels. Like I loved all the levels that just got you easy trophies where like
Uh-huh.
it would just like fling your character across the map and there would be like a billion point bubbles, and it's just like, here, put down the
Yep.
controller and we're gonna earn you like 4 trophies.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
definitely were some of those, but like I do remember people being very creative with the camera and yeah, like you said, and like all the different effects and all the other stuff. So like in theory, I should have loved Dream, but like you said, the biggest problem was it was just whatever. Like I cannot remember their name off the top of my head. I'll see if I can find it. But there's this guy in the Podcast Beyond group where you can find me and previous member Sam River Fishman and other guests. Yeah, but there's this guy who all he does is just makes like weapons in Dreams, like not even
Hmm.
levels or like gameplays or whatever. He just spends hours and hours modeling weapons or environments, or like he made like a box the other day. And that the cool thing about Dream is like I feel like Dream is so much of a better tool than Little Big Planet was, because they allow you to do way more with it. But the problem is there's not really that focus of, hey, this is what Dreams is about.
Yeah. That is a pretty significant issue that makes it hard for average people to get into. Because I think what was cool about Little Big Planet is that it was easy to like just sort of mess around with, but there was also a lot of depth there where you could get really fancy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like I feel like Dreams is almost a little too heavy for brand new people.
Exactly, because yeah, that's why I never got it. Just because when Little Big Planet, I was in college. I didn't have a fiance or a kid. I had a lot more free disposable time, so I could spend two
Yep.
3 hours drawing, like, because I had like level maps and level designs and like blueprints. There'd be times where like I'd be in class and I'm just sitting there doodling, like trying to make up enemy designs. But as an adult, it is a lot harder. Where like I only have 2 hours a night free just to myself. I don't want to do that, spending more work like building a level, doing this. And
Hmm.
while it's really cool, Dreams is just I've because I watched it when it came out, and there were like some cool levels, and there were like some people did treat it like Little Big Planet, and some people were just like, no, I made a tree. There's no boss. There's no nothing. It's just like, hey, you can change where the sun is, and like you can see the dynamic
Hmm.
lighting. But that's it. That was the whole experience, and that just me personally didn't appeal to me.
But hey, you can make movies in it, so
But
that's pretty cool.
that's what I was gonna say. That's I guess my last closing thing is like Dreams is one of those things that like in the back of my mind I'm like, okay, it was a failure. It wasn't like Little Big Planet. It didn't set the world in fire, but I do kind of like the idea of just like Media Molecule off in the corner where like everyone's going like, oh, Last of Us faction, and like this needs multiplayer, and like all this Game Pass stuff, and then Media Molecule is just off in the corner and they're just like tinkering at their little thing. Um, what is it? Because I don't think I'm gonna be covering it this month, but like apparently on the February 27th, they're gonna be doing their Impy Award, where they just kind of talk about some of their favorite levels and like creators and stuff that things they made. So like it's one of those things.
Hmm.
Even if it doesn't make Sony any money, I do really hope they don't try and shift Media Molecule into like, all right, cool, you did your experimental thing, make a VR game, make a like a PS5 game, make a game for mobile or whatever. Like I hope they do
I
let them keep their freedom.
Yeah, I think there was a chance of that when we were like post Minecraft, and it seemed like people were over that, and then Roblox became big again,
Mm-hmm.
and has only continued to get pretty big. And then you also have Fortnite, which even though it's not at this point not as creative focused, there's still creative elements to it that people really enjoy. Um, I think Media Molecule just sort of has this. They clearly have a lot of talent and a lot of quality to
Exactly.
the stuff they produce. I think Sony, for the time being, unless there's always a chance an executive gets switched over and is like, "How much money are we losing from this?" But I think someone at Sony is just like, "Look, at some point, we could have the next Roblox, the next Minecrafts under the PlayStation brand." But I think if we ever get Dreams on PC, or if the next Media Molecule game is the first PlayStation game that gets a simultaneous PC and console release, I think we'll definitely see a lot more um, come out of it if it had a PC version, or if the next creative Media Molecule game was on PC than just being console exclusive.
Yeah, because I know, well, like as I said, they're making a movie with it, but I know it is possible to get stuff off of Dreams, but I think it's very annoying that you basically have to transfer it from
Yeah.
from a hard drive to a different hard drive, and then you have to convert it into whatever specific program you want
Yeah,
to use it for.
exactly.
Yeah, so I definitely, and especially with all this stuff going on, uh, with God of War and Horizon Uncharted and all that, I actually do think
Yep.
Dreams does make a lot of sense, and like you were saying to start, I would love if for Project Spartacus or whatever, at some point in the future they just go like, hey, here is just the Dreams, like the level player or whatever, like level creator. We're like, cool. There's no
Yep.
creation tools. There's no editing stuff. Like this is just for you to experience other people's stuff. I do think like the biggest issue for Dreams right now is at launch and even now you hear all these stories of like, I remember when it came out, people were freaking out because some dude made the Joker stair like scene with like Joker on the on the stairs dancing, and that was a whole level, and like with all this, but I just don't know how many people are gonna actually take the time to not only spend the $20-$30 to buy the game, but even take the time to be creative and build their own thing. But we'll have to wait and see what the future of Dreams brings. But let's move on to our next story, which is that MLB The Show 2022 is coming to Nintendo Switch as well as Game Pass. And this comes to us from IGN.com by Joe Scrubbles. MLB The Show is coming to Nintendo Switch and will feature cross-save, cross-play, and cross-progression across all consoles. Announced during a reveal event, the Sony first-party title will now be available on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and Switch. You'll be able to play and carry save data across all platforms by creating a MLB The Show account. The game will once again hit Xbox Game Pass on launch. MLB The Show arrived on Xbox for the first time last year, after MLB itself asked Sony San Diego to make the series multi-platform. This year's edition marks the first time the series has come to a Nintendo platform, and is the first portable version of the game since MLB The Show on Vita, rest in peace, in 2015. So yeah, just a kind of quickie one, but again, the news stories are all free flow. They're all kind of organic. It is crazy to see how this combined with the Bungie news, we're just living in weird times, man. Like there's a
Yep.
there's a PlayStation game being published on Switch. It's weird.
I don't think this is as big of a deal since it is not just any PlayStation title. It is an exclusive, or it is a sports title that
Yes.
has the license to a major sports organization that a Sony internal studio has been producing, and they were like, you know what, we've crunched the numbers. We're gonna revoke the license if you don't make it multi-platform because it just will make more money that way.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and this is
I
this is one I'm surprised people don't bring up more. But yeah, this was one of the ones where like I always felt bad where gaming's expensive, but like I'm always fine of like, hey, you want to play The Last of Us? Get a PlayStation. You want to play Mario? Get a Switch. Like this, it always did feel weird of like, hey, you want to play?
yeah
If you are a baseball fan, you have to buy a PlayStation. There is no other choice. So I am actually happy that they're giving people these options.
Yeah, I think the original The Show also, when Sony got the exclusivity, it was like already, uh, yeah. Oh no, it was like beginning of the PlayStation life cycle. Never mind.
Yeah, it was early.
I thought it was gonna be like in the middle of the where you would have picked a 360 by that point, but no. Um, no, yeah, I agree. For certain properties, it does feel really weird when you don't have a good reason for why a title is exclusive to a platform. I honestly, even though I've always been a Nintendo guy, but since Nintendo decided to forego power for unique features. I've always had a PlayStation as my second system
Mm-hmm.
for third-party games, and I genuinely was not happy, even though it didn't affect me, that the Spider-Man titles are exclusive to PlayStation,
Yep.
because I think of that character as just a character everyone should have access to.
Exactly.
You can't make a money argument about like it's hard to make a Spider-Man game. Like, you will sell a ton of copies, and like, good job to Sony for getting that, because like it's probably helped them get a lot of PS4 sales. But I think the MLB The Show becoming multi-platform is good for the game. I hope it doesn't stretch San Diego studio too far,
Mm-hmm.
because I know a big issue people have talked about in the past is when, like, for Madden, part of the problems they'll have is that they'll have like two separate teams for certain platforms, or like you'll make a really good game and you'll have it like think it runs really well, and then you'll realize that you haven't thought of the other system in a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll try porting it to the Xbox One and then have a bunch of problems. Um, it's why I kind of do like timed exclusives, not like absurdly long, but like if a game comes out and they're like, we're not talking about the Xbox version, and then the Xbox version comes out only a couple months later, but it has all of the patch updates that came to the original system and it just runs really good. I think that works better for this than like you have three different games come out for like the Switch, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and then everyone's like, well, don't get the Series X version, it's just objectively worse. And then the Switch version, it's the Switch version. If you want to play baseball on the go, that's cool, but otherwise, get one of the other ones.
I think that's the Switch. Uh, them adding the Switch one, like, I'm not a baseball guy, so I wouldn't personally speak to it, but I do think the Switch is actually the smartest thing ever, just because the fact that it has the cross save and the cross progression.
That is really cool. I was not aware of that. I respect that.
Yeah, because what is it? It says you'll be able to play and carry your saved data across all the platforms. Yeah, it'll also have cross save, cross play, and cross progression. So like, I don't know how many. Like, it's just, this is one of those things where like, okay, this makes so much. I feel like Sony is gonna make way more money with this, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people would just buy the Switch version of itself. But,
Exactly.
having the Switch version as a secondary one, where like, cool, I'm going to play, the road one, the road to the show, or like the campaign mode on my PlayStation or on my Xbox. But when I do get to, this shows how much of a sports person I am, like, to the playoffs.
Yeah,
or like,
yeah.
when I get to the more grindy parts of the game, then I'll transfer it over to the Switch. And so it's definitely weird, but like the fact that, hey, the MLB is double dipping, Sony is technically double dipping, so it's one of those things. The whole situation is weird, but again, it is a sign where we're just in weird times, and games are going to be all over.
I think the more interesting story, even though it's not a surprise, it is interesting that we are, for the second consecutive year, the Xbox version is going to be available on Game Pass at release date for no extra cost or anything.
Yeah, because
To me, that's the really interesting part, is that Sony wants to make their $60 or $70, I guess, for the PS5, the next gen versions. They want to sell those copies, and the MLB is like, nah, we want to put this Game Pass.
Well, that's the thing I find interesting, is because I remember talking to people last year when it did come to Game Pass, and I was just like, okay, well, that's because it's never been on Xbox before. They're trying to build up that audience, and then the next year,
exactly.
That one will be paid for, and like, no, they're doing it again. So it kind of goes.
That's a good point.
It goes to show the value of Game Pass, that even at some people could make the argument, hey, maybe it didn't have the growth that the MLB wanted. Maybe it's still small numbers, or they're trying to build it up. But no, I think it's just that the MLB sees Game Pass as a much better tool than asking the people to buy it straight out.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of other people who think Game Pass is a great service, this one comes to us from Electric Gaming Monthly. .com, and it's that Ubisoft is adding Ubisoft Plus to Xbox. And this comes to us by. It doesn't say. Comes to us by Ubisoft. Originally launched in September of 2019, Ubisoft's game subscription service Ubisoft Plus has offered the chance for PC, Google Stadia, and Amazon Luna players to play over 100 plus games for $15 a month. Now the service will be finally making the jump to consoles, or at least Xbox consoles. Ubisoft announced today that Ubisoft Plus will be coming to Xbox in the future. While the statement doesn't specify when it's coming or which Xbox console, it's a pretty safe bet to assume that it will be on Xbox One as well as Xbox Series X and S. At the same time, Ubisoft also announced that Rainbow Six Extraction will be launching day one on Xbox Game Pass for both Xbox and PC, but it's more important to note that Ubisoft Plus will not be part of Game Pass, or at least at this current point. Microsoft has previously incorporated EA Play subscriptions into Game Pass Ultimate as one of the perks, but Ubisoft Plus is likely to be too costly of a service to do the same. However, it's always possible that Microsoft and Ubisoft could work on a lesser version of the service to add to Game Pass, such as one where newer games aren't playable without a full Ubisoft Plus subscription. So yeah, like we were saying before, it's very interesting to see the different ways companies are using and utilizing Game Pass. Where when this news first came out, because I just remember Ubisoft, I think they added Xbox, and it's just like, hey, Xbox, are you up? And I literally text my friend, I'm like, if Ubisoft or if Uplay goes on to Game Pass, I'm going to just have to get an Xbox. I'm gonna have to suck up my pride and just get a thing. And this is this is a little bit more understandable. Where cool, like they said, honestly, I'm shocked that it's not on consoles already.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, because I think there have been times where I've been looking in to get the Ubisoft subscription for a month to play something specific. But yeah, I think. Oh no, this is the first time it's on consoles. Yeah, it is interesting how, because EA Play was the same way, where before it even came to Game Pass, it was on Xbox, and then I think months later it came to PlayStation as well. Mm-hmm. Let me double check that. I don't know if
because
it's on.
No, it is on PlayStation because I remember.
Okay.
Well, that's the weird murky thing is that it's been on PlayStation for a while, but it's bundled in with Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah, that I think it came to Xbox, then PlayStation, and then later was integrated into Game Pass.
Exactly.
So it's interesting how little by little. Well, it is interesting that it's essentially a competitor to Game Pass on Xbox. Mm-hmm. And that little by little it might eventually end up on the PlayStation at some point. It's interesting seeing these streaming wars leaking into the gaming sphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they said, what is it? I wouldn't be surprised. The easy answer would just be cool. Everything's under Game Pass, and then you need sub subscriptions depending on the specific content you want.
Getting Hulu and then getting Stars or whatever added on top of that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Ubisoft Plus is part of Game Pass. The main thing for me is in all theory, I should be all about Ubisoft Plus because I love Assassin's Creed, I love Far Cry. Me and my one friend are big into Ghost Recon, and the main thing for me is just that I don't know why it costs so much. It's $15 a month, and what Game Pass is still $10, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing this doesn't just give you full access to DLC. either.
I for Ubisoft Plus, I believe so. Let me check. Ubisoft filling time.
Because to me, what seems like the real big attraction would be if like you can get Rainbow Six Extraction and then like not have to worry about like keeping up with um the new like whatever the battle pass or whatever situation is going on. You just pay your Ubisoft thing and just stay invested that way. And you could also wait.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I
Oh no.
believe X because that's something I'm surprised more people don't talk about. But yeah, with Game Pass, it's just I believe the base game. So if there's any other uh, if there's any
Uh huh.
other DLC or whatever, you have to do that. But yeah, exactly
Okay.
right here. Because with Ubisoft Plus, you get the premier edition of all games, and you get access to any expansion, season pass, and more content.
Yeah. So I see why it is a $15 a month for that because the idea is that if you want to keep up with Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, and all of the updates to it, as well as in this case Rainbow Six Extraction, it's just a good example of like a games as a service. You don't have to worry about paying for every single update or buying a season pass all the time. You just pay $15. And the idea of what Ubisoft is hoping is that you're locked into their ecosystem. You are an Ubisoft person. You turn on your Ubi box and you just go and play your Ubisoft games.
Yeah, because what I said, I'm looking at the full list, and yeah, there's stuff like The Crew, there's Riders Republic, which I completely forgot came out,
Yep.
Rainbow Six, like Immortals, Uno. They're really big into the Uno.
They're not talking about Rayman Legends, are they?
I think what is it? Yeah, South Park Gold Edition, Watch Dogs 2 Gold Edition. So that's the thing.
Making a
Like you,
Rayman game.
yeah, I don't really have much more to say. That's just like you said. It's so crazy. It's just I don't know what else to say. It's crazy. It's going into 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest, just from the past month, the biggest takeaway I've had like internally is like, okay, I need to like stop being a grumpy old man for a second, and like it's not a simple case of like, cool, I have a PlayStation, you have an Xbox. The way we are gonna consume and like we're gonna interact and like play and like engage with all these games, it's going to be very different going forward.
Yeah, I've also been like reluctant to like touch like the Game Pass or stuff, even though I only have a PC.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be able to run most games that are on it. I have a different problem, which is that I go every like I think it's Tuesday and Thursday to the PS4, the online shops on the PlayStation and the Switch,
Yep.
and I just go straight to like the $5 games and go up from there. And so I just have a huge backlog of games that I may want to play in the future of that I paid like $5 or $10 for.
Mm-hmm.
Or in some cases, like sometimes they are 99 cents or like $3.
Yeah.
So I don't need Game Pass. I just go to the bottom of my Switch screen or the bottom of my PlayStation list, and I'll be like, oh, that's a thing that I've been meaning to play.
Well, like the main thing for me is just that like I'm very much pro physical, and just because I kind of enjoy that experience of um, in a similar way. Like I really love going to mom and pop game stores or going to Walmart or whatever, and just digging through the $20 bins or like hey
Yep.
like
Mm-hmm.
hey I remember hearing this game 2-3 years ago. Um,
I
so
got Final Fantasy 4 on the DS for like $10 at a Kmart
wow.
because well, nobody knew there was a gaming section in the Kmart, including the people that worked at the Kmart. So that I would always go there once in a while. It's closed down now, but when I was like in high school, I would just show up and they'd have games that were like 4 or 5 years old because nobody shopped there for video games,
Yeah,
and they'd all be super cheap.
I remember what was it? one of the grocery stores I used to go to as a kid, they just had like this little electronic section that just had like, chargers and DVDs and whatever. And I remember I got like this was like in 20 it would have been 2014 or 2015. I got Killzone 2 for like $2. Where there's just
Nice.
like, we just have this game. We don't even remember how it got into the store, but here, we're trying to get rid of it. And they were like,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think the worst part was like, they originally sold it for like $10 or $12 and just nobody was buying it. So I'm like, all right,
Hmm.
I'll swap it up for $3.
Nice.
But yes, again, speaking of Game Pass, let's move on to our next story from neowin.com. I'm absolutely gonna, I apologize, Yusamad Jawad. And it's that Microsoft Xbox and Game Pass PC now have over 25 million subscribers. Back in January 2021, Microsoft had announced that Xbox had 18 million Game Pass subscribers, up from the 15 million announced in 2020. Although there were rumors that the service had hit 30 million back in September 2021, this appears not to be the case. Microsoft has today reported an updated figure, and while it's not as high as 30 million, it certainly indicates that Game Pass adoption is not losing speed. In its massive, yeah, and then it's just saying how all this news comes from the Activision Blizzard merger. Xbox gamers will no doubt be pleased that Activision games are coming to the service, as it opens the door for cloud gaming opportunities to a multitude of new devices. It will also likely drive further adoption of the service, as new and old gamers alike flock to play Activision games on their preferred platform at a relatively low cost. So yeah, another quickie one, but going back to, what is it? Xbox one. Yeah, it is interesting how, because
Hmm.
sorry, I'm looking. Yeah, so what was it? Xbox One has about 41 million. So if there's about 25 million Game Pass users, pretty much half the people have Game Pass.
Yeah, I looked up and uh yeah, it's like if you include Xbox One and the Series and combine all of them you get 63 million Xboxes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's uh doing the math, that's like almost 40% of people who have a last gen or current gen Xbox have a Game Pass account,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, I obviously in a playful way, but I always do like to kind of joke with people just about like a Game Pass or whatever, but like Microsoft has really gone out of its way where it's like, hey, there is like really no excuse for you not to have Game Pass in some form, be it on PC or even like their whole cloud streaming thing, like to the phone. Xbox is making it
Hmm.
very hard to not recommend Game Pass because, kind of tying it back to PlayStation Plus, the thing I've always told people, and I still stand by for the most part, is not everyone can buy a new game. Not everyone can get buy multiple game releases in a month. Like some families, they can only afford maybe 2 or 3 games a year, and that's why I would just say like, get PlayStation Plus because it has all these great games and all these other stuff. Like, and I still feel
Hmm.
confident recommending PlayStation Plus. If someone came up to me and said like, hey, like even comparison to the other two, like just in terms of games with gold, I feel like their service has kind of dropped a bit since Game Pass has come out, and with Nintendo, it's like I guess I could recommend it, but it is a big like asterisk of like there's a lot of dumb stuff on Nintendo Online. But with
Yeah.
PlayStation Plus, it's still the like yeah I can recommend it like full stop. Not every month's gonna be amazing. Not every month's gonna be the best, but overall, Plus is still a great service. I would totally say like I'd be like, why don't you have Plus? But
I
now
think the other
no
cool
go.
thing with Plus is that you also get bonus discounts added to sales as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes a sale for a game might be $5, but because we have PlayStation Plus, it's like $2.50.
Hmm.
Um, and there's like a lot of little things where like this is different, but like someone did the math of like if you bought every game as well as the free games a couple of years, you would have saved like literally thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
By paying the $60 fee to have PlayStation Plus access.
Hmm.
Um, it's Game Pass is definitely got a lot of strengths going on, and it's really hard to deny the value that comes with it.
Well, exactly.
I think
That's what I
at
was
this
gonna
point,
say. That's what I'm gonna say is that PlayStation Plus. I'm like I can recommend it. Game Pass. Before it was just me being stubborn. Like if you are just a struggling family or like with a kid or whatever, like Game Pass there's really no downsides to Game Pass.
mhm. I think it's the usual question of how much time do you have to play games,
Exactly.
and are you getting the biggest bang for your buck with how much time you're playing games and the types of games you want to play on Game Pass.
Exactly.
A big reason why I'm avoiding it is just because I go through games really slow, and like it took me like 3 years to like starting from Kingdom Hearts 1 to get through the Kingdom Hearts series, and they were all on Game Pass for like 9 months.
Hmm.
So for that reason, I prefer just like adding the PlayStation Plus games to my account, and then I'll get to them when I get to them. Like I have the Shadow of the Colossus remake on my PS4 that I got through PS Plus, and at some point I'm gonna go through it again because I've already beaten the PS2 version. I might be in the mood to play the remake at some point. Um, Sort of like there's a handful of games like that, or games that I just bought for like $5 or $10 a piece.
Hmm.
Um, I also just like Game Pass has a lot of things, but I also like a lot of specific niche titles that sometimes are don't
Hmm.
try to get on Game Pass. Um,
Hmm.
so that's another reason for me. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I
Well,
have
no.
a particular situation where
Oh yeah, because I'm very much the same. Where um
I have too many games already. I don't need more games.
like I do think Game Pass has some definitely flaws, and the main one for me is that it's basically it's very much trying to be the Netflix of games. And the pro and the con with that is like there's a ton of content because I'm just looking here. Just in January they added was it Danganronpa, Death's Door, Hitman Trilogy, Nobody Saves the World, Paparazzi, Rainbow Six Extraction, Windjammers, Tetsunoko, and then Rainbow Six Siege. And then they usually do 2 drops a month. So there's this 7 here plus another 7 that they're often adding so much content. It's like, oh well, I gotta go play this. I gotta play this. I gotta play like it starts to become overwhelming. Where I'm like, I can't keep up with playing all these games. And like, I understand this is a very personal thing. This is why I enjoy PlayStation Plus and why I enjoy doing this podcast because it's a lot easier for me
Hmm.
to go, hey, here's 3 games. One of them's gonna be a PS5 and then like 2 PS4s. I'm like, cool. It's much easier for me to go. You know what? I'm gonna try this game, or I'm gonna pick
Hmm.
that other one compared to having 30, 40 games dropping on the same day, and I'm just like, I can't decide. I don't know what to pick or what to play.
Yeah, and then on my end, as a big Nintendo guy, Nintendo's never been consistent enough for it to be an equivalent. But for the time being, they are. I've been playing Banjo Kazooie for the
Yeah.
very first time
Mm-hmm.
because I missed it. I didn't have an N64 when it came out, and I've been always wanting to try it out. And so for the past couple of months, Nintendo has been like, "Here's Paper Mario, here's Banjo. You're getting Majora's Mask next month," and so that is also an alternative as well for um, and those are also like iconic tested games that have stood the test of time as opposed to flavor of the month type things or like um, the part of the reason why I is when people describe a game as a Game Pass game feels like a micro insult to like the game itself. I mean, like, oh,
No, yeah.
I wouldn't buy you, but like I got this subscription service, so I'll try it out. And then the other thing is like I use Netflix for TV shows specifically because TV shows are difficult to own physically. Like to have a box of like 7 or 8 DVDs of 7 or 8 seasons of a show. But like I actually still do buy Blu-rays of movies that I actually like and that I want to watch over and over again. I have a pretty
Exactly.
large movie collection for that reason, and simultaneously, like how many of us don't buy music physically, but we know a guy that has like a room that just is wall to wall covered with vinyls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Records. Like I think I think we have this idea that at some point physical media is going to die and everything is going to be all subscriptions.
Sadly.
And I don't think it's going to happen. I think eventually that will be most people will interact with media that way. Like nobody, a lot of people like don't have Minions Blu-rays. They just stream it on whatever wherever Minions being streamed. But I think there will always be, collectors and like specialty places that are like, hey, we have the newest movies here. If you don't buy them within this week, you're out of luck. But sort of like how video games were in like the 90s and 2000s, like if you really wanted a game, you knew how to get it physically, and like maybe there's going to be a higher deadline and more sense of urgency if you want to get a copy at all. But I don't think we're ever going to like reach a situation where like if you're not subscribed to 12 different services, you just can't interact with media anymore.
Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing. I don't think we're ever gonna be like, hey, we're done with discs, but I do feel like you said, it is gonna go not necessarily harder, but like it is gonna you are gonna have to go that extra step of like, oh, if I want like you said, if I want a vinyl, you can't get that at Walmart or Target or whatever. Like you're gonna have to go to these specific gaming
Mm-hmm.
stores. And I think that's just the thing that kind of upsets me, but like it is a thing of that it does feel like they are kind of going, they're by trying to make it more convenient, more downloadable and whatever thing, it's just that weird give and take of like, you know
It's
I
funny because
mhm.
part of the reason why, as someone who was working at a Target throughout 2014 through 2018, the big reason why people didn't pick up Xbox Ones, because sometimes people, I would be like showing them the video games whenever they were shopping and being like, well, they're gonna stop making, or they've stopped making 360 games. So I know you're trying to buy a controller for that, but we don't sell them because they're not making games for those anymore. And I'd be like, you want to buy an Xbox One? Like you could play the games you already have, and then be able to get the new ones, and that would fix your problem. And a lot of the times people would say, no, because I heard you can't buy used games. And most of the time when I play games, I just go to the GameStop and find the cheapest ones, or I get them all used from like 4 or 5 years ago. And I think what console manufacturers and publishers have figured out is by instead of you doing that, just offering steep discounts for digital versions, since they don't have to pay the shipping or the packaging costs. They can just keep monetizing instead of having resales, diving into a market for people that can't afford full price games more easily that way. Um, and I think there will always be a place for the launch day physical products, but I think as we go on and on, um, if you're the type of person that is living on a budget, or like a lot of the times when I buy games cheap, it's not so much because I can't afford them at full price. It's more because I'd rather there's something that I don't think I'm going to jive with very well, so I'd rather pay $5 for a game and realize I don't like it than take the day off to play a new video game and then realize I don't like it, and I spent $60
Yeah.
the day it came out.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's a big shift going on, and it can go like in a bunch of different ways, because Remember, at one point we thought Laserdisc was the future, and then it wasn't. So
One day we'll be able to watch a movie like with the disc the size of a pizza. One day, that's gonna be the dream.
one day.
But yeah, so let's move on from that to another kind of quick lump one, and this is just some fun number fact stuff. And the first one, just a quick one, is just that Days Gone has reported, or sorry, was that Days Gone's reported 8 million sales were not necessarily accurate. And this comes to us from pushsquare.com by Sammy Barker. There was an outrage, and now there's clarification. Earlier this week, PlayStation fans were in an uproar when Jeff Ross revealed Days Gone had sold 8 million copies on the PlayStation 4 as of his time leaving the company in December 2020. He hypothesized that the Steam port had probably added another 1 million players to the title's total, which surely put it close to 10 million sold by now. That number was revealed at the same time Sony celebrated 8 million copies of Ghost of Tsushima being sold, and it was portrayed in such a way that the platform holder had done Deacon St. John's debut dirty. As is often with the case with stories like this, though, the truth is often not as quite as dramatic. In fact, speaking with Twisted Metal creator David Jaffe's YouTube channel, Ross clarified that his source for the sales was a defunct website called GameStats, which effectively tracked trophy data to calculate a rough number of players. In this instance, used copies, PlayStation Plus versions, and retail or rentals would contribute to the 8 million figure. This is truly a number of sales is a lot likely less lower, even if the game was clearly still successful. So, just a quickie, like, it goes to show how crazy this month has been, but kind of dovetailing into that, I'm also going to look into the PlayStation Store's top downloads for 2021. So this initial one comes from the PlayStation blog, and I'm just going to do the top 10 because they have it by top 20. Yeah, but the one according to PlayStation is for PS5. The top 10 was NBA 2K22, Call of Duty Vanguard, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Madden NFL 22, Battlefield 2042, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Call of Duty Cold War, MLB The Show 21, Resident Evil Village, and Far Cry 6. And originally I was going to show that, but then you linked the one from the NPD group, and I forget who did you say reported on it?
Matt Piscatella, I forget what his job title is, but he's one of the people, like the spokesperson. He does a lot of the number crunching at NPD at the end of every month, and then these were from mid-January when he was showing off all the year-end sales for everything. So I posted the top 20 video games of 2021, and then the top 20 specifically to PlayStation platforms, sort of to see how those divide up. And I think on these lists, NBA 2K is the only one that doesn't include digital sales. So I just thought it would be interesting to see how those switch up.
Yeah, because according to his list, his top 10 goes Call of Duty Vanguard, Madden NFL 22, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, MLB The Show 21, Battlefield 2042, FIFA 2022, Ghost of Tsushima, Resident Evil Village, and Far Cry 6. So I think the only real shake-up between the two is... Oh god, my phone is acting up. Is, what was it? FIFA, which I do find interesting because, what is it? According to PlayStation, it was like... Far Cry and Assassin's Creed were above that. But yeah, aside from that, like, I do... Again...
And then... The other thing is, this is the list you have is specifically PS5 games.
Yes.
And this is PS4 and PS5 combined.
Yes.
So when those games have like multiple platform versions, they're mixed together for that reason.
Yeah.
So it is interesting seeing how like all of these titles um shake out. Something I find really fascinating is that despite being on only a single platform and only counting the physical versions, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl was the fourth best selling game of the year.
Yeah,
And also that came out in October. On top of that,
yeah, that's the thing I find interesting, and
November.
because I was gonna tie that to NBA and Madden is obviously we're big gamers. We've spent close to what God, I don't even want to know how long this episode is, but like we are very engrossed in like the going on that happen into daily things. But
Mm-hmm.
a majority of gamers are not like that. A lot of people are just like, hey, I just play my games. I come home, I turn it on, and that's it. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to all this other stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are very happy with, was it Pokemon Legends, and people are very excited and all this other stuff. But in like Nintendo's eyes, they were fine. They did not have to do that because the mom and the children and all the other people who normally play Pokemon, they weren't like having the issues that the hardcore fans were.
Yeah, and what's interesting with Pokemon is that there's like an interesting. I've met some people who are I would describe as a mid-core, where like they know every single thing there is to know about the Pokemon games. They love Pokemon games, but whenever they play a quote unquote bad Pokemon game, their reaction is just that's disappointing. I hope they fix that in the next one. And then the next one comes out and they're like, "Oh cool, they fixed that. That's cool." Hey, Cyndaquil's back. Love that guy. Like they had this weird like they're always high on Pokemon, and then the significant issues that some people may have are just sort of like, I'm disappointed, or I'm stoked that they fixed that, and they can't like they go +1 or plus minus or -1, and that's it, which
Yeah.
I find interesting.
Well, yeah, because I'm very much the same where, much like most people, when Pokemon came out, like I played Red and Blue, I played Gold and Silver, I touched a little bit of Ruby and Sapphire. That was the first one where I didn't like. I didn't get a copy, but I basically just borrowed my brother's and I just played off of his.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to fall off. And it's actually a very interesting parallel because now like I'll kind of hop in for the tentpole title. So like I got what is it, X and Y, and then like after that I didn't get one till Let's Go. And then like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get Sword and Shield, but like I might get Legends now that people have seem to be enjoying it a bit more.
I've been having a hard time finding people that have played the game that still feel really bummed out about it. Like
Well,
I think the worst criticism I've heard was that this is a really really fun PS2 game,
mhm.
but like that was just on like the quality of the visuals and like nothing about the gameplay was something an issue that they had.
Yeah, that's well, but kind of tying it back to the sports. That's the thing for me is, Pokemon. It's just this love hate, and much like because I actually like I do enjoy sports game. Like what was it back a few years ago? I played MLB with my one friend. I used to be big into NHL. The problem for me was
Mhm.
just the fact that I am not the type of person to buy the yearly release, and the same goes with Pokemon where. I'll hop in
Mhm.
like every second or third one. We're like, hey, I haven't been in here for a while. What's going on? What's the new stuff? Um, so that's where I'm in
There's
this.
a I can't remember which game it is, but there's a meme on IGN where they've posted the same Switch review 3 years in a row,
Well, no,
and
that's because EA is crazy, and what they've done is EA has said we're not gonna make Switch versions of this game. So basically, what they've done is I think it was like 2019 or whatever. They released that one on Switch, brand new. And then every year since then, all they've done is they've updated the roster, and then that's it. So there's no new game features, no new patches, no new nothing. It's
yep,
literally the same game as last year. They just updated the names.
yep.
But I guess kind of veering it more towards PlayStation, it is also kind of interesting how what was it? Uh, well, first off, Miles is still killing it. Like I'm generally shocked at that how much people enjoyed
Mhm.
Miles, especially.
Yeah, I over Christmas break, my little sister, she's 16 now. She was playing it for like the fourth time. She
Mhm.
was like, "Yeah, I've already beaten this game 3 times," and she started on like the easiest difficulty, and she's like, "Every time I want to go through it, I just start on the higher difficulty." And I'm like trying to 100% it. And I was like, "Okay, you really like Spider-Man, Miles Morales."
Yeah, because what was it? Because even Spider-Man's high, Ratchet's high. That's obviously why Sony paid the big money for them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, as I filled time, the one I'm more shocked is just how was it how low Returnal is, because that was a one that I feel like so many people were jazzed and like excited for,
Mm-hmm.
and it not saying that it underperformed, but it just I guess that's more of a testament to the power of Insomniac more than Housemarque.
Yeah. I think the thing that Ratchet did is it made very clear what it's doing is something that you can't get on a different platform. It's specific to the PlayStation 5 or like next gen PS5 tech. Um I don't think a lot of people in the know felt this way, but I guess just by watching some gameplay, you could look at Returnal and just kind of think this is a very pretty PS4 game.
What
I guess.
what is it that girlfriend review says? Diarrhea Christmas lights.
Oh, I didn't watch the girlfriend review for Returnal,
No, but yeah,
unfortunately.
no, I 100% agree with her. Where it's really easy to
Uh-huh.
go, hey, because like the crazy thing is, oh god, I don't even want to do this math. Ratchet and Clank is what? It's 20 years old. Ratchet and
Yeah, it started in it was like if not a launch title, like a launch window title for the PS2.
but yeah, so Ratchet's November
But
4th.
then
Yeah, sorry, November 4th, 2002. So
yeah,
it's gonna
and
be
then
20 this year. Oh.
I know.
But the point is,
And
like,
then
I feel like
the
families, people who, oh, I remember playing Ratchet when I was a kid, like, they're gonna show this to their kids now. So Ratchet has that value, Spider-Man has that name value, Returnal
mhm.
less so.
I think the other wacky part is that Returnal is a brand new IP that you can start fresh. You don't need to know anything about what Housemarque has done before it. You can just pick it up. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is not a sequel or like a one of those sequels that is just like forget everything else. This is a sequel to Ratchet and Clank the remake from 4 years ago from 2016. It is a sequel to Into the Nexus,
Yeah.
the last PS3 title or the last like main
Yeah.
timeline Ratchet and Clank game, and it is straight up like, hey, these rifts are actually something we did in Into the Nexus, and we're just double dipping on them.
Oh,
If you
okay.
weren't playing the quote unquote Tools of Destruction trilogy, you're going to be a little bit lost, and I'm impressed that it's done so well, despite being like, no,
Yeah.
this is for Ratchet but Ratchet fans. I keep trying to say fangs. Ratchet fans, and if you're hanging out, welcome to the ride. But
Yeah. Yeah, because what was it?
this
It
is
was
for the fans
Into the
specifically.
Nexus was, yeah, November 6th, 2013. So,
Yep.
oh, what, 8 years later?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember people asking why it was coming out because it came out after they announced that they were making a next gen platform. Like I don't think the PS4 was announced yet, but like we knew that they were going to announce it soon. So everyone was very confused that there was like a Ratchet game coming out in the twilight years of the PS3.
Mm-hmm. And it was not bad. I don't.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. Um.
It was a good game. It was just more Ratchet, which isn't bad, but didn't elevate it.
Yeah. The last little bit of number stuff before we move on that just blows my mind on hindsight is that Insomniac bought. Sorry, PlayStation bought Insomniac in 2020 for $229 million. And I don't know if it's just the current stuff that seems so
Oof.
low right like that. I feel like they got Insomniac for a steal. Like
I guess the only thing I can think of is like how much are Ratchet Resistance and I think Sunset Overdrive would have also been part of that deal. And I think it's Song of the Sea, that indie or
Yep.
not indie game, but that small scale game they made.
Yep.
How much are those? And remember, because you can't include Spider-Man,
Yep. Yeah.
because you're buying the developers of Spider-Man, but you're not buying Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I think the luck that they had when they bought it is it was just after everyone forgot that Ratchet and Clank 2016 was great.
Yeah.
And it had been so long since that game. What I find fascinating is I've heard nothing but awful things about Battlefield 2042.
Yeah,
and that is out number 5 on PS5, and then number 6. No. I switched. Number 5 on top 20 games. Period.
Mm.
Like all platforms combined, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah. Especially because I think there's talks of it going free to play, and people like they're trying to find different ways to kind of bring the audience back because of just how bad the launch was.
I heard there were like really bad tech issues to the point where like the game wouldn't be able to tell if you had like a keyboard and mouse plugged in and a controller, one would disable the other or something.
Oh
and there were certain like menu functions you couldn't access on the PC version. Just like really basic like coding things were like messed up. And I'm not sure, but I think I heard something about cheating issues as well.
Yeah, no.
So
yeah, well, hopefully Battlefield can get its stuff together, but we're gonna have to wait for that. And speaking of another thing, we're gonna have to wait on a bit longer. Transition is PSVR 2, and still while away. It's not gonna come out. Actually, do we even have a release date? We don't. But yeah, so PlayStation was at CES this year, and they revealed VR2, and they kind of went more into it. And this comes to us from CNET by Scott Stein. Sony pulled a little surprise at its CES 2022 presentation, teasing a few more details of its expected next-gen VR headset for the PlayStation 5, and a sneak peek at a game that will launch with it. The hardware is indeed called PSVR 2, as Sony explains in a new detailed blog post, and its funky looking controllers are called the PSVR 2 Sense controllers, similar in spirit to Sony's DualSense controllers. But the more interesting news is the exclusive game revealed, Horizon Call of the Mountain, a game that is set to be in the same world as Horizon Zero Dawn. The VR headset promises to have unique vibrating feedback and controllers to the advanced with advanced haptics, along with eye tracking, a 110-degree field of view, and a foveated rendering, a technology that focuses only on where the fovea of the eye is looking to maximize resolution, get a more graphical punch with fewer pixels. And then, yeah, they go into some of the specifics, saying it's going to have an OLED screen with 2000 by 2040 pixel resolution per eye, 90 hertz and 120 hertz frame rates, 110-degree field of view, eye tracking, adjustable lens separation, in-headset vibration, 3D audio, built-in microphone, an audio jack, and we're only going to use one single USB connection. So I don't know if you've had VR, sir, or if what has been your experience with VR so far, not just in terms of PSVR, but also like the Quest or the Vive.
One time when I was visiting my parents, my little sister put her phone in a sleeve and put that on my head when I wasn't paying attention. So the only VR I've ever used is Samsung Phone VR. It's just at a price point I've never been able to like get to, unfortunately, and none of my friends that are into it live near me, and none of my friends that live near me that can't afford it are into it. So I just don't know anyone in my circle that has a VR headset, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only I actually just lucked out because back in 2021, when I started streaming, the only way you could stream off the PlayStation was to use a PlayStation camera. So I started looking through that, and I just found um basically the whole VR setup with the camera, but also the headset and the wands and whatever for basically like
Dang,
for
nice.
half price. So the only reason I have a VR is because of streaming, and it is one of those things where like I VR is it's I sound so cliche whenever I see it, but like it's truly unlike anything else, and it's like I can't even describe just the sensation and the feeling of like it's truly something I feel like everyone should experience in their life. But like you said, the issue is just that I still paid like $200-300 for it, and I got it on sale. This new one, there's like talks that it's gonna be, the parts alone are what is it? The VR, or sorry, the Quest VR launched at like 399. The Quest 2 is 299. I truly love and I think VR is something magical, but like you said, the biggest barrier is just that price thing where as excited as I am for VR2, like my gut reaction is like, oh, I want a VR2. I love my VR1. My VR is great. Like I definitely
Mhm.
want to play these new experiences. The biggest problem for me is just like, I'm gonna round up for Canadian, but like after tax, a PS5 costs about $700 or so in Canada, and then a VR. Let's be conservative and let's say 300 in America, so like 400 in Canada. I'm spending $1,100 just to play these things, and
Yeah.
the VR, like as fun as it is, I haven't touched that thing in probably 5-6 months because it is just a hassle of having to set up the camera, have to set up the wand, having to do all that other stuff, and like it's cool that hey, now there's only one cable, and they're not using the old school PS3 wands. Like they're updating the thing. I'm
Hmm.
definitely excited for VR too. The main thing for me, I have this like love hate thing of like I love VR too, but I'm probably not gonna get it until like 2025, 2026. Like when the PS5 is nearing the end of its life.
Yeah. For me, it's VR is just just has so many things to overcome. Part of it is like I wanted to delve into it once I built a new PC. Not just because I really wanted to do Beat Saber, and because on PC you can get modded songs, which mean I can get dance to all of my like the anime stuff that
Oh yeah,
people are too.
I've seen a few Kingdom Hearts ones where they changed the wands into keyblades.
Yeah, exactly like that. So but the even though I have like my PC could totally do VR, the big issue now is just the price of actually buying the VR. And then the issues where I was like, "Oh, I want to get an Oculus Quest." And then Facebook was like, "Do you want to plug your Facebook account into it?" And I was like, "Ah, I have a Facebook account. I don't have a problem with it. I just don't want to
Yeah,
plug it into my gaming machine to turn it on." Um, with Sony, I it's the usual stuff where it's like, show me the games.
yeah,
And I know and then the other thing is like you have to do this dance where like you have to figure out how to make the games that people want to see in VR, but also make them not feel like, oh, this is a cheaper, more wonky version of a franchise I really like. So I'm a little worried about Horizon because
yeah.
Horizon is like an open world game, and it's all about like exploration and like intense combat and riding robots. And I don't
Exactly.
know how you can plug that into a VR game very well. Um, it's VR development is still really tricky. I feel like no one, people are getting better and improving at it every day. It's still. I think we're still at like not even. We're not even hitting the NES. I think we're still in like the Intellivision stage. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, because that's the toughest part is that Um, because even what was it like, kind of using that way? Like I think there was a lot of hiccups, when a lot of developers went from the Super Nintendo to the N64. Like that whole jump from like basically 2D to 3D. That took a lot of developers a lot of time to do. Where like if you even look at like
Hmm.
Nintendo, I don't really think they really got 3D games till like the Wii. I think like they were still learning as they went. And with
Yeah,
and
no,
with
because
mm,
it was really interesting because they had that good start with Mario 64, but then they were like, well, the PS1 and the PS2 have two sticks. We'll have two sticks on the GameCube, and then they were like, I don't want to use them though. I'm afraid of them. So like Mario Sunshine was like the camera stick barely did anything, and the game was like, no, just hold the just lock on that
yeah,
stuff.
just recenter.
And every game was like, yeah, you can use the stick, but just lock on to stuff. And then the Wii delved into that even more, where they're like, we're not even giving you a second stick. There's a D-pad. Just lock on to stuff. You don't stop trying to control the camera. Just lock on to stuff.
No,
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, well, that's the interesting with VR is like I feel VR is still like you said, it's still in the early beginning starts. Where like, cool, I think if every developer switched over, we would be getting some banger games. But the problem is like it's still a very small market because was it PSVR 1 only sold like 5 million units. So it's one of those things like you need to put a lot of time and effort. Like you said, it's not a simple case of like, cool, Horizon, it's in VR now. Like you have to make these very curated, specific style games, and that just takes a lot more time and effort and money that I'm sure a lot of devs
Hmm.
don't want to do. But until some serious devs actually put the time and the effort into making these games, it's not gonna have like the growth that I really feel like it could have.
Yeah, something that was interesting is you said the PSVR sold only around 5 million, but for a while until like the Oculus Quest and that line started taking off, that was the best selling VR headset
Yeah.
was the PlayStation VR,
Mm-hmm.
just because it had that the the affordability to it, and like you didn't have to have a $5,000 PC. You just had to have a, admittedly, still pretty expensive $300 PlayStation system. But you also don't have to like be like, what parts do I need to get the PC that can run this thing? You just had to be like, oh, here's a box that says PS4 on it. I'm good.
Exactly. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm optimistic. I know VR is gonna do okay. My hope is just that with VR 2, it definitely pushes down that barrier of again in the whole thing
Hmm.
like kind of takes VR to the next level. We'll have to see what comes with PSVR 2. There's plenty more stuff. Like I'm sure we're gonna hear lots more news about VR 2 in the coming year. And it might even be at E3, though it's not going to be in person. That's because E3 is going virtual again in 2022. This article comes to us from sunnylinks.com by Katie Cakes. E3 is going virtual this year, marking the third year the annual expo has been forced to chain up the formula in place of its typical presentations. The ESA told VentureBeat today that continued health risks posed by COVID-19 pushed them to make the decision to go online again. Due to the ongoing health risks surrounding COVID-19 and its potential impact on the safety of exhibitors and attendees, E3 will not be held in person in 2022, the ESA told the website. We remain incredibly excited about the future of E3 and look forward to it announcing more details soon. So, again, crazy times, all this other stuff.
Hmm.
I guess the question I pose to you is E3 has more or less been online for a few years now. Do you really think that they need to even do the whole presentation thing anymore, or you know, should they still try and do the hybrid thing?
Um, I feel like for the sake of the pandemic, they definitely still need to
Yeah,
do the
100%.
hybrid thing and keep it a virtual. Um, I think the unfortunate fact is just the within the past couple of years, even before COVID, like 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
the Electronic Software Association has kind of proven that they don't know what to do with E3. Um, and as much as E3, I think will be sort of like I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I think even though the actual convention expo, the and electronic entertainment expo may will probably cease to exist within the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Um, I think E3 in spirit will always exist. I think there's always going to be maybe not a week, but like just a set of weeks in the middle of the summer where everyone just announces what the rest of the year is going to look like for video games. I think at this point everyone has been like split apart so far and has um or even including E3 just has set up pipelines on their own that it's easy to imagine like Sony hasn't been at E3 for several years.
Nope.
Nintendo has an E3 booth, but their big showcase is always online only, and they've also have done Treehouse streams that they were doing on the show floor. They've been doing them in house occasionally throughout the pandemic as well. It's it's just at this point it's just easy to imagine it's hard to see a reason for the show outside of double A developers like
Well, yeah, and that's what I was about to say. I think that's where it can shine best is I like, I mean, like, I don't need the Xbox thing of like how every year they would always do something with FIFA where it's like, hey, we made this car out of Lego. Hey, like we lowered this like new Lamborghini Aston Martin from the ceiling. Like I don't think
would
we
you like to hear Pele speak in broken Brazilian for a couple minutes
exactly we don't need
or
that.
in broken English
Yeah.
and occasional Brazilian phrases?
Yeah, we don't need that whole side of E3. But like me personally, I would like it best if they kind of keep, like you said, the booth aspect and have the virtual thing kind of like, again, kind of like gamer Comic-Con where cool,
Mm-hmm.
there's no more presentations, there's no big showcase, but it's still a place for people to come together and try these new games and do this other stuff. Like I think that's where I would like E3 to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I say, even with last year they went virtual, like especially because just like the presentation you can have having a packaged video compared to doing it all live on stage. Like I really don't,
Yeah,
I don't see the
there was
benefits of doing it live.
there was that infamous E3 situation where they couldn't get Skyward Sword running because it used pointer controls and they had so much IR interference from cameras and like journalists' cell phones and wireless interference that they couldn't demo it on stage and they just kind of flutzed around for a couple minutes. Um
The one I forgot about was I was watching. I think it was like Did You Know Gaming the other day, and they were talking about was it? There's a trophy in Uncharted 4 where when you get like basically to the bell tower scene, if you just like leave your controller there, you'll get a trophy because the controller like when they demoed it at E3, the controller just broke and like just literally sat there for like a minute and a half.
uh-huh. Yeah, I remember that. That was, and then everyone ended up clapping because
It worked.
uh
I
they
did.
were no because there were the rumors and things people were finding out about fake E3 demos and they were like, this is proof that this is a real piece of software and not
Oh
like
yeah.
a pre-recorded video.
Yeah, so um I see. Again, I'm not one of those people that I'm like, oh, E3 sucks, E3's dead. Like, no, I hope E3 is a part of gaming and somehow. Like you said, I just don't think it needs to be the one sole, like, place where games are reviewed. I much more
Mm-hmm.
have it kind of, I guess, work with Summer Game Fest. Where like, hey, here's just a time to celebrate games and like, to bring people together about games. And I hope it kind of shifts focus to
Mm-hmm.
that more than trying to be the
I
the place where they break news.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I will. I hope like the thing I'm glad that Microsoft even post E3 has an outlet for like live press conferences, because I did enjoy some of the like seeing people on stage presenting their games aspects of E3, and that's something that I've missed from Sony these past couple of years with the state of plays. Um,
Yeah.
it's bittersweet because like I don't think I've lost anything, because I was never someone that would like turn on G4 and watch them walk the stage floor. I was always just the press conference guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like the way my dad, he thinks he likes technology. He doesn't really like video games a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the one time he would care is whenever it would be E3, and like there were a couple times where he'd see me going to my computer and he's like, "Are you gonna watch the video games thing?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he'd be like, "Bring it down here, put it on the big TV in the living room. I want to watch it
Oh,
too."
that's awesome.
So that's something that I'm kind of gonna miss from certain things, but it's also hard to feel bad about it because like I feel like we've just gotten more these days. Like there was the
We just had the state of play for Gran Turismo. Like
Gran
that.
Turismo, yeah, and during Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest, there was the what is the term? The New Game Plus Expo that was like all double A like small scale Japanese games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where like we learned a bunch of about like No More Heroes 3 and like the debut of the game from the Danganronpa creators and stuff. So and that's something that I wouldn't have had in E3. Like I would have maybe gotten a trailer uploaded at like 3 in the morning through IGN, and that would be it.
Or like a 5 second scissor reel of like, oh, that 5 second of the
Yep.
fox that looked cool. And then you're like,
Yep.
oh, I love that game. That game looks cool. And then you just instantly forget, like it's out of your head
Yep.
because there's so many
Yep.
other games. But yeah, so we'll have to see what E3 does. If it's because right now it is just the physical one. They haven't announced if they're doing a digital one. And just by virtue of it being digital, I feel like they have a bit more time to figure that out. Like they don't have to book the convention center or like make the preparations. But hopefully we find out what's going on with E3 soon. And speaking of things that are up in the air and we don't know what's going on of, PlayStation Now may be shut down soon. And this comes to us from gamingbible.co.uk by
Hmm.
Imogen Donovan. At the end of next week, you won't be able to purchase a PlayStation Now subscription from realtors in the UK, as stores have been instructed to remove all PS Now cards from their shelves. What a coincidence, isn't it? When we consider rumors of a PlayStation Plus and a PlayStation Now merger that has been rumbling since last December. The success of Game Pass cannot simply be ignored. Forza Horizon 5, which arrived on day one on the service, celebrated surpassing 15 million players in 2 months. Merging PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now isn't a novel idea. In fact, fans suggested it when PlayStation Plus doles out a merger offering in comparison to the PlayStation Now users who get bangers like Nier Automata, Ghost Runners, and Undertale. Still, PlayStation Now is focused on PS4 and PS3 games. Expect to find your favorites from the PS2 and the original PlayStation to be omitted, which is a shame given how much of those formative games people look back on. A recent report from Bloomberg claimed that Sony was working on something called Spartacus, offering a collection of new and old games for a monthly charge, and was aiming to launch in spring of 2022. Spartacus would take over PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now as a hybrid of the two that possesses both their benefits. For example, PlayStation Plus allows subscribers to play online games, whereas PlayStation Now has the capacity to stream older games to the modern console. And then a quick addendum just to that is that I I'm trying to think of the words. Yeah, so there was a
Mhm.
brief period where PS3 games were spotted on the PS4, the PS5 store, fueling PS Plus rumors. And this one comes to us from PushSquare.com by Robert Ramsey. Ever since Sony was supposed to overhaul PlayStation Plus, rumors regarding additional backwards compatibility have been rampant, and now we've got another one. As reported by VGC, PS5 users have spotted something unusual on the PS Store. PS3 titles with prices. If you select a PS3 game on the current store, you should be sent to a PS Now version, a version that you can stream through the subscription service. But that's not the case here, since the reported titles actually aren't available through PS Now. As you expect, some are claiming this was yet another sign that PS3 backward compatibility is happening. However, and we hate to spoil the party here, this isn't anything new. PS3 titles have been popping up on the PS5 and the PS4 stores for years, and whenever it happens, a fresh rumor hits social media. As far as we know, this is just a visual bug, and a bug that simply refuses to disappear. So, obviously, that was a crazy thing going into last month. And I thought that would be the crazy news this month, is more Spartacus rumors. But, I guess, for you, sir, and we kind of touched on it earlier, what's your whole thought on both Spartacus and PlayStation trying to take on Game Pass type thing?
I find it very fascinating because I know that because Sony has made such a made their brand the AAA like flagship title base since the twilight years of the PS3, like starting with I want to say around Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and like Infamous 2, and then obviously when once they got into The Last of Us and it became like a game that like, oh, you don't have a PS3, that sucks, you're missing out on one of the best games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to imagine them budging on that to truly compete with Game Pass, where Microsoft wants to put every game that they make on that service day one.
Mm-hmm.
And Sony really likes making like they were have been pushing for like the $70 game on the PS5.
Yeah.
I think the fusing PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now does make sense. It always felt weird that they were separate services. Um, I was checking the numbers. I think
Mm-hmm.
for a while before Game Pass, they were like they were actually the highest subscribed
Yeah.
streaming service at 5 million. Obviously, Game Pass has lapped that by now. Well, I guess it's not a streaming service, but
Yeah.
um, they were doing better than Stadia or I don't know where Luna is at now, but they were doing really good
Mm-hmm.
despite not really putting a lot of comments promotion into that. Um, but it's weird to see because I think something PlayStation is clearly I don't know stumbled about around is a good term, but they clearly don't know how to compete in the space because Microsoft's reaction to the Xbox One to losing out on the Xbox One generation has basically been to play a different game.
Yeah.
To just change the rules of the game, and Sony is very much trying to be to out Nintendo to be Nintendo of the
Yeah.
Super Nintendo era, where they not only had the best games, they also had the best tech. Um, and I mean, I don't know how either of these are supposed to go. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know what the right answer is. All I know is that I really like single player games,
Mm-hmm.
and Sony has found a way to make that marketable and make money out of that compared to third parties these days.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if that jives with a subscription service,
Yeah, that's
unfortunately.
well, that's the like you said, that's the thing I find interesting is, uh, with the whole thing with now and like the whole PS3 backwards compatibility thing, I feel like to the vocal minority, the people who like listening to game podcasts and things of that sort, they're probably all about it. I don't know how much, average people would really get that much out of going like having the PS3 library and all that other stuff. Where Xbox, it's easy to say like, hey, every new game is on Game Pass. It's simple. Like people are cool. And like I don't know if that really works for PlayStation as much, where it's like, hey, you want to play Enslaved Odyssey to the West? It's from like 2013. It's 10 years old. Wow, I just realized that as I said it. But
it's I don't know. It's weird. It's hard for me to see how people feel about these things, because every time I think that, I meet someone and then they're like, man, they should make a new Ty the Tasmanian Tiger out of nowhere, and I'll be like, whoa. And they're like, yeah, man, every so often I'll just put that game back in my PS2 and go for another spin through it. So like I know we have this idea in our heads that nobody wants backwards compatibility, and I think for me,
it's less that no one wants it. It's just I think it's one of those things that people like the idea of it, but I don't know how much, like on a day-to-day, most people would use it.
For me, the big problem is it only works for a specific set of games, because like for a long time the reason why I wanted it is because I never got to play the Kingdom Hearts games on PS2.
Yeah.
And now I have 3 PS4 cases that have the entire series on it. Mm-hmm. Shadow of the Colossus was a game I did not originally play on PS2. I played the PS3 port of it. And I feel like at this point, any games that are worth playing get remasters.
Exactly.
And on top of that, it's not just looking pretty. That is honestly less important to me than stuff like how the Mega Man collections have artwork included with them, and like development diaries, or like how the what are they called? They got bought by Microsoft. That doesn't narrow it down at all. They made Psychonauts.
Oh,
the Double Fine.
Yeah.
All the Double Fine adventure game remasters have director diaries where you get to hear Tim Schafer explain the thought process from the game, or how they approached developing the game, which I think is really cool. That's also in the BioShock collection as well.
Yeah.
And I think that it's tricky, because on the one hand, when you do it well, you get the things that I just described, but then on the other hand, when you do it poorly, you get the Silent Hill HD collection, where they completely they recast all of the characters. They removed the fog because they didn't seem to realize that it was a tone setter, and they were like, well, we want you to see the whole town, right? And they completely changed all the voice acting, which with Silent Hill is really frustrating, because they really nailed a particular tone with the way they recorded people, and then they just had a bunch of modern day, like Troy Baker is in Silent Hill 2 in the HD collection of all people.
Of course.
So when you do it well, it like revitalizes a series and brings in a whole new set of fans, and when you do it poorly, it just makes people turn to piracy. So I guess on the one hand, like the advantage to backwards compatibility is recognizing those games that have those cult followings, that are willing to, that you can maybe not get all of the money of, but get $5 here, $2 there,
yep.
And not and not put in as much effort to like that you would put into like for some reason they want to remake The Last of Us, or how the God of War games got like trilogy got a set of remasters and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things like I think we can, because we can kind of transition to the last one, but for me it's like if you had asked me 2 months ago, oh, what does, if PlayStation should just copy Game Pass, I'm like, well, sure, whatever. But like, as this month has shown us, like, there's I feel like just doing the same thing of, all right, cool, PlayStation has good exclusives, that's not going to cut it anymore. And I think it is offering something for everyone where, like, cool, they need to, it isn't just about, hey, having the new hot release. They do want that classic legacy player. They do want they want, like, kind of everybody however they game and however they want to do it. And that does involve, having that backwards compatibility and having that legacy, even if it's only
Mm-hmm.
a small percentage of the people. Like, they're trying to cover as many bases as they can, where, be it single player, multiplayer, new, old, like, they just want to cover however someone wants to game. And like, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the cool and the frustrating thing is, at this point we don't know what Sony's plan is. Like, is it just
Yeah.
to sell the most boxes? Is it to have the most rated games? Like,
Yeah, because that's the other thing people forgot is that the PS4, I think from the get-go, was a profitable system.
yes.
And I think that they've been repeating that with the PS5 as well. So part of it is that the part of why the games are so good is because they're less interested in making a profit from the games like launch sales as much as making the games a status symbol that makes the console itself attractive.
Yeah.
The games aren't products themselves; they are marketing for the PS5.
Exactly. So,
And something I'm wondering, because I feel like Microsoft, we're not there yet because they're still, like, purchasing a studio is one thing, getting them to finish a video game is another process. I think Microsoft's goal is to be on Sony's level, but also being like, hey, you see this new title from the developers of Deathloop? Free on Game Pass.
Yeah.
This is a AAA Game of the Year quality title that you get on Game Pass day one at launch. And I think it's going to be interesting once we get like a string of 3 of those games out of Xbox Studios to see how Sony reacts to that and how that affects Project Spartacus.
yeah, because yeah, if you had asked me baseline, like, just like, oh, cool, free games and then backwards compatibility, I think that's the interesting thing is, like, yeah, like you said, even if Xbox fires on all cylinders, they still, like you said, the problem is, like, what was it? Because not Arcane. Who did Deathloop?
Arcane.
Oh, Arcade. Yeah, like, yeah.
There's 2 Arcanes. There's Arcane Leon and Arcane Austin.
Well, no,
this is the Leon / Dishonored team.
No, the problem is I have I'm looking at my computer, so I was thinking, like, Arcane the show.
Yeah.
That's always trippy.
That happens too.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
like you said, that's interesting is that what is it? Even with, what was it, Redfall? Like you said, they still have to work and build up, these pedigree and this other stuff. And if PlayStation just sits on their laurels and just go, like, no, we're gonna keep making cool games, that's not gonna be enough, and Xbox will overtake them and, like, outpace them. So it is interesting seeing, like, right now, I don't know where the companies can go and what their end goal is right now, because they really could go any way. They could say, like, hey, we're gonna beat Xbox at their game. We're gonna be like Nintendo and just do our own thing. We're gonna to do a separate game. And so, like, hey, Xbox has Game Pass, but their games aren't good. Ours are 70. Like, I thought I had a rough idea at the start of the year, and then after this month, who can say? And I guess bringing that reference into the last one, let's bring to the last one, which is 3. At first, I was going to go into them all specifically, but I think we can kind of just do a general overview. And it's just all the acquisitions that happened this month. Because at first, Take-Two acquired Zynga for $12 billion. And then later into the month, Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard for $68 or $69 billion, I believe.
Nice.
And then PlayStation acquired Bungie for, what was it, 3 billion. Um, but yeah, so
Where is it?
you know,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah,
3.6 billion.
yeah. So yeah, so instead of going into the specifics of like how each company, what that means, because there's already been a plenty podcast about that. This episode's already long enough. The thing I find most interesting is, at the start of the month, again, if you had said, like, hey, what is Project Spartacus going to be? I'm like, oh, it's going to be Game Pass on PlayStation. But now the fact that, like, you have Call of Duty being exclusive to Xbox eventually, air quotes, possibly, and Destiny being multi-platform and, like, Bungie making multi-platform games, it really does just put gaming in this weird place where, like we said, even going back to way, way earlier with MLB The Show, I don't think any one specific strategy is going to work anymore. I think, like, it's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
adapting all the different ways, because that's the awesome and the nervous thing is, like, before it was a lot more simple of, like, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo's in the corner. Now, like,
Yep.
each company is doing such a unique and interesting, different way to release content. Where, like, Nintendo, they're not anti backwards compatibility, but they are very much like, hey, we're gonna sell you the same game over and over again for full price, and, like, hey, we added a hat that's worth the $60 now. But they still do have quality, awesome legacy titles, and you have Xbox going with the Game Pass, where they're like, all right, we just want content. Like, what's it? I think
Mm-hmm.
they have over 30 studios, and, like, logistically, I don't think they're actually going to do it, but that's enough studios that they could have a new Xbox release every year for 2 years, and then that gives about a year and a half for the cycle to repeat.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just so crazy how again, when uh Microsoft bought Activision, it was like, oh, okay, well, Call of Duty's PlayStation exclusive, and then PlayStation buys Bungie, and it's like, oh, okay, Destiny's PlayStation exclusive, and they're like, no, it's multi-platform. So now there is, like, I could see Call of Duty still being multi-platform even after the contracts are all up and they have to renegotiate.
Yeah, because you look at the numbers and, like, the current and the last Call of Duty are the top two selling video games, period.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also really, really, really high on, or no, they're when you add in the physical sales, they're the best two selling games on PlayStation as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that you want to attract people to your platform, but how much do you want to cut off your nose to spite your own face? You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
And then it's interesting because everyone keeps kind of bouncing back and forth. Like, Microsoft is, like, making certain things exclusive, but keeping other parts multi-platform. Like, I can still play Cuphead on the Switch and stuff like that. And I'm wondering, like, because I felt like Sony as a company just doesn't have the money to bully your people around like Microsoft.
No.
As a giant, the whole Microsoft, not just the Xbox part, as powerful as they are.
Well,
I was
I was reading up on the Xbox, and something I totally forgot was when they bought Activision, it was like cash money straight up, because typically a lot of time with these corporate deals, it's like, oh, well, we're buying stock, or we're buying in installments, and Microsoft was just like, no, here's 70 billion straight up, let's just take it. And, like, I don't know how many other companies just have 70 billion lying around.
Yeah, exactly. So I again, the Bungie deal kind of makes things weird because we don't know where exclusivities are going. But from 2 weeks ago, what I was thinking might happen, because I can't imagine Sony just buying um huge publishers willy nilly like Microsoft has been doing. I can imagine them doing what they did on the PS2 and going to their Japanese partners and negotiating with them for temporary exclusivity,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of continuing what they did with Square Enix, where you got even though it's supposedly temporary, you still can't get Final Fantasy VII Remake on an Xbox.
Yeah.
They've secured exclusivity for the at least the launch window of Final Fantasy 16. Um, PlayStation or Persona, if you want the main titles for that, they're exclusive on PlayStation. I can see them now going down to Capcom stores and being like, "Hey, you're probably working on Resident Evil. How much money do you want to make it easier to finish that game?" And doing the same with like Sega and Yakuza, almost like what Nintendo keeps doing with Platinum and Bayonetta or Astral Chain, where they want something that sticks out, even if it's not necessarily going to make a ton of money for their platform.
Yeah. So I think that's the most interesting thing with because Microsoft has said like, hey, we're not done acquiring people, and PlayStation, they haven't said it as much, but like I could see another one in the cards. So I think again, even going way back to the original story with Fire Sprite, I think the interesting thing going forward is not going to be not necessarily like, oh, PlayStation owns the Bubsy IP now, but more so just the ways these companies are going to be used going forward,
Mm-hmm.
beyond just like, oh, you own this IP, like, oh no, you're a support studio, or you're you're helping with this game.
Yeah, I've seen a decent amount of I feel like Sony has a decent amount of pleasant relationships with like big publishers, especially on the Japanese side, that would make people like start considering like, do I am I really that desperate for a Game Pass subscription if I can't get Resident Evil or Devil May Cry or Final Fantasy?
But yeah, no, seriously, like we definitely could talk more, and we could like go way more into all the different ways of what's gonna happen. But I'm very nervous and I'm very optimistic about what the future will bring. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see. Uh, and while we wait and see, great transition. That's gonna bring it to the end of the show. um, there's no reader mail, and that's because I screwed up last episode and I accidentally gave the wrong email. So, if you want to write into the show and have your letter read on air, please do it at pspluspod@gmail.com. But before we go, I just want to quickly go over the Plus games for February 2022. I know what year it is. And on PlayStation, you're getting EA Sports UFC 4, Roller Coaster, Planet Coaster, Console Edition, but only the PS5 version, and Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, a one-shot Wonderland adventure. Which, real quick, I don't know if you've played any of these, sir?
Okay, yeah. Now I remember. No, I have not played any of these. Technically, I have played a handful of hours of Borderlands 2, but I never got to the Tiny Tina DLC.
Yeah,
Um,
I know a lot of people are pissed because it's just a piece of DLC broken out into, made standalone, which I can understand. I get why people are upset. But as someone with, like, no time, I'm like, oh, cool, it's only 2-3 hours? All right, let's go.
yeah, I think the Handsome Collection was a
Yeah, it was on...
PS Plus. Yeah, exactly. So, at least there's that.
Exactly.
And I think one of the other DLCs, like I forget her name, but the Siren in Borderlands 2, she had her own DLC.
Yep.
And that was a PS Plus title for some reason one time.
Yeah, well, it's like, what was it? It was same with, what is it, Gat Out of Hell, and I don't think they ever did Blood Dragon as a Plus game, but it's just kind of like that, where...
Yeah.
I can understand how someone would be upset about, getting, basically charging full price for something that was less than that, but, I mean... I don't know. This is the first month in a while where I've been like, oh, the Plus games have been really rough.
Yeah. Consoles for Coaster, like theme park sims is not super great. Especially, it's weird that it's PS5 only.
Yep. Yeah. Apparently,
That's
there is a PS4 version, and it does have a free PS5 upgrade, but you have to buy the PS4 version to get the PS5 upgrade.
that is so weird.
Yep. Yep. Sony's gonna Sony. And then
Yeah,
over on games with gold, Broken Sword 5, The Serpent's Curse, and Ariel's Knights Never Yield. I have.
I this is my first time ever hearing of those videos games.
That's what I was about to say. Like briefly going back to games with gold, or sorry, with Game Pass. So many people keep saying like, oh, they need to combine Plus and Now. They need to do like Plus and Now need to be together. I don't know why. On a certain level, I feel bad even like bringing up the games of gold because I don't remember a game in the last 2.5 years like that's only been on gold where I'm like, oh my god, this game is on gold. Like, yeah, you go.
Every once in a while, I see something that's pretty neat. I'm like, oh, that's only on games on gold. Oh, that's disappointing. But I can't name them off the top of my head. It's very funny because it was like just a token gesture to keep up with the PS Plus before Sony actually made it mandatory for online on PS4. Um, but it's somehow it's never like really caught on in the way that PS Plus did, which I find really funny.
Um, well, no, it used to be very competitive, like spot on spot, but like ever since Xbox has switched its focus to Game Pass, that's where the big money, and that's where I just feel like it's kind of a what is it? Because that's the thing I always find interesting that I always whenever I'm talking online with people is a lot of people are like, the weird thing you have to remember is that Game Pass is only the game. So like, for example, Halo is free to play, but like if you get the new Call of Duty, or I guess Rainbow Six Extraction would be even more better. You still need gold to play online. So like, even if you get Rainbow Six Extraction free with Game Pass, you can't play it if you don't have the online.
Yep.
So that's where, for me, it's just like, yeah, just roll gold and Game Pass together, like, because Game Pass, Games of Gold just isn't really doing much on its own right now, and it does, it's just kind of superfluous at this point where I don't know how many people have just Game Pass. Most people have probably Game Pass Ultimate or Game Pass with, games with gold. I don't know how many people just
gold Xbox Live. It's a weird
exactly. It's
description thing.
Exactly. But that will do it for another episode of the Unofficial PlayStation Plus podcast. But before we go, sir, where people can follow you, what kind of things you want to promote, because again, you're very active in over much of the Kind of Funny Facebook groups. If people want to go there and join up and join the conversations.
Yep. Yeah, you can. I post a lot in the Kind of Funny Facebook groups. Also, Nintendo Voice Chat and Podcast Beyond. If you want to hear my Nintendo and PlayStation hot takes on the IGN Facebook groups. I'm also I do a lot of guest appearances on Penultimate Conquest podcast. I'll pop up on the Penultimate Conquest show, on the Cross Media show whenever we're talking usually Star Wars or Marvel movie stuff. Sometimes Anime Nation whenever it's something old because I'm bad at keeping up with current shows. And then you can also see me on Twitter at Noisy Shark. That's at NOIZY Shark.
Yep. All the info will be in the description too.
Okay, cool. That's where I pop up from time to time. You can I've been writing a script that I want to turn into a video of like all my favorite video games of 2021, which is a lot of weird ones like the World Ends With You sequel, the Nier remake, Guilty Gear, just a bunch of the stuff that's usually I'm calling it the bottom 11 of someone's top 20 games of the year.
That's an amazing title.
So yeah.
But yeah, so if you want to follow the show, you can do it all one word, PS Plus Pod, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are on. I was gonna say Spotify. Excuse me. We are on Patreon. I forgot that existed until 2 days ago when I got an email saying like, "Hey, your account's gonna be closed if you don't use it." So hopefully in the next few days we'll be doing something with the Patreon. If you'd like to write into the show and have your thoughts read on air, you can do it again. pspluspod@gmail.com, all one word. I have been Vincent Kenny. Oh God, I do this every time. He is our guest, Mr. John Rivera. Our lovely guest for this episode. Thank you for coming on the show, sure. We lost track of time.
Oh god, yeah. I'm sorry. I just sometimes my mind goes like a dozen different ways before it gets back to the original point. So
Yeah, no, I was gonna
I
say
just do not shut up.
No, I was gonna say I thoroughly enjoyed it because like I feel like I have my bases covered. I always feel bad where I'm like, I only do this once a month. I don't have enough content to space things out. I feel like the algorithm is gonna love this episode.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But until next time, long live play, whenever, wherever, forever.